All right, there we go. See ya.
You're done?
I think so. Yeah, I did my round.
All right.
Yeah, sometimes.
Or just an FYI that anything you hand out today, you're gonna want to email out to the entire team too,
Okay.
because
I'll have Norma send it to everybody.
Hey, Cynthia. Hello, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Dave.
Nice to meet you, Dave. I've met you before.
Hey, you look kind of familiar.
who the hell are you?
I'm a new guy.
What are you doing here?
I'm a new guy.
This is an invite only. How you doing, brother? Good job on Sunday.
Yeah, hey.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Let me use the bathroom real quick, then we'll get started.
Dan and Robert. Robert hasn't been here in years. Probably a month.
Through here, do my little head counts. Got several people on vacation. Plants, appears more. Cows that's Nick's still on honeymoon. Donovan, Doran, Walker, Gretchen. Where'd Meggett run to?
He ran out to the car with Cynthia to pick up a piece.
Okay. Mark, grab them and tell them to get their butts in here. All right, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
What?
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, Dustin.
There we go. Give this guy an applause real quick. All right, so again, welcome to basically the 13th of May. So again, I feel like we had a pretty good weekend, thanks to those who contributed to that. Looks like been paying attention deeply to numbers lately. So numbers have been on the top of my board, and I had realized that they were counting not homes in our overall closing percentage numbers. So therefore, I apologize. I didn't catch that sooner. So I was like, whoa. So I started taking a deeper look into it, and today they're changing that. So therefore, it will no longer count in that number. Because I was freaking out, and we went into reverse engineer mode and figuring out the numbers. And that's when we noticed basically the difference between it. So again, action is in place on there. So I want to make sure, again, we are, make sure that we're doing the due diligence on, we're grading you guys on numbers, that we're grading you on the correct numbers, not the wrong ones. So with that, let's go through numbers. Again, volume right now, we're at 689, 629, close percentage 32.7 based off what we can control. 17,754 is our average sell. It's a great job. $4,500 RPL. Once that number stops counting against the, there's 7 or 8, I believe, customer no-shows. So that will actually drive this number up too. So it's probably going to be, I found about 2 points difference is what it said. So that'll set about, take that number about 4,700, which is pretty good. Financing percentage is 63.18 before we get the stuff entered in over the weekend. I did the best of reverse engineering it. Want this number to be about 65 to 70. But again, that's a 13-point increase based off we were before, so that's really good. Rescission percentage is 4% based on volume. We literally have 3 rescissions for the entire month, so that's it sets out looking like 7%, but it's really, I took the rescission based on volume, which is 4 because there were 2 small ones and then 1 decent sized one. So again, good job on controlling that for the first 13 or 12 days of the month. Some of our outliers. First was Jeremy, 218,543. Nice job, man. Mr. Mike Pierce, he's actually $4,000 higher, so he's technically in the 90 grand. So good job. We got right through here, 79,543. Sean, good job. Right through here, basically, Mr. Ryan, 68,470. Good job. Really, over the last 2 days, right? Yeah, it's a good job. Basically, right through there, we have Scott, 50,535. Nice job. And basically, here we have closing percentage, Sean, 67%. Nice job, my man. Mr. Consistent and on fire. Let me give you a high five. I love seeing that every time. Good job. Way to go. All right, next, I believe is Mr. Jeremy, if I remember correctly. 57%. Good job, my man. Jeremy, way to lead the board on both sides of it. 50%. Ron, good job, buddy. And we got 50% for Ryan. Nice job, brother. And we got 50% again for Mr. Mark Lance. Nice job, brother. We got 37.8 for Mr. Charlie Brown. There you go, Charlie. And we have 33% for Miss Cynthia. Congratulations. Way to go. So, sold her first deal, right? 1 for 1. Yeah, good job. Way to go.
Hey, can we make a correction? She's actually 1 for 2.
Okay. Well, there you go. She's 50%. Oh, because one was a customer no-show?
It's a no-show.
Yeah.
It counts as against you.
It won't. Yeah, I counted against you for right now, so technically you'll be at 50% too. So good job. There you go. All right. So again, one thing that I wanted to show before we get moving into the any other messages. There's actually something I want to pull up and talk about as being kind of an important reason why. I put something on the string the other day telling you to make sure we're dispoing from LEAP. And we dispo from LEAP, what you got to do for me for a short period of time is go back, look at your number. You know, it shows your number, your volume should change. You should be paying attention to your volume or closing percentage on the LP side of it. If you notice your volume number doesn't change and you enter a sell in, let me know immediately. Most of the time it does, and no problem at all. But I think even Jeremy, your big one you wrote over the weekend, your $20,000 one, looked like you sold $258 because you forgot to put the 00 on the back side of it. So therefore, make sure that if something doesn't look right, let me know so I can correct it. But when you dispo from LEAP, this generates a report, which you guys are going to love. And I'll make sure you guys get copied on the report. What it does is it shows us what was actually sold on through there. Like here's an example, it's just the last one we sold on Sunday. Tells who basically who the rep was, talks about contract, talks about right through here, finance option, 12 months, no interest, no payments. Please note all 3 windows, San Diego Reflash, Almond in and Almond out, Stevens and RN in hospital, and can't answer his phone during the day. Please leave message or he'll call after lunch, right? So right through there, good job on notes. Master Reflash, that's how we pack in if we're gonna put any fluff in. There's our Reflash package, which is basically just put in our flashing package, which is what that is. That's $675. That's where he put his fluff in there to make sure he was covered in case he had any oopses. Shows his door diagram, what he actually, this number here shows after he discounted what they paid for the door. Okay, so therefore it helps you with your commission percentages. On the bottom shows the windows and then what actually they end up paying for the windows on there too. So on the top it shows, right through here it shows GL and then last price offered. He forgot to tap on the screen and put the contract amount. Contract is actually 8502, which technically was about $677 over green line. Gives customers email address and everything. What you'll find is GL is literally 5% lower than that. So you take list price times 0.65, and that'll give you what your GL is. So this actually does all your pricing out for you. And I want to make this come across so it helps us with pouring out our jobs. It helps you with pricing out your jobs and going through, not having to go through LEAP and go through each line item, this will help pretty dramatically. So again, I'll start making sure you guys get a copy of this, but when the call center, especially if you have custom product where you're doing bifold doors or, multi-glide doors or panoramic doors or anything else, it gives the detail in there and then what you charged over on the right-hand side. So when our project managers go out to measure the project, it gives them detail they need, so that way they're not having to, scratch paper it, or I created shared a sheet with them that they're now using for the measure side of it. It just helps them have more information on side of it. That plus the contract will give them the majority of everything they need not to look stupid inside the house. Okay? Yes.
Question on the custom products. If you, normally like on the windows, if you want to erase a window or erase a door, you can just edit it. But if you've got 2 or 3 things in the custom column, you can't just edit it. So give them a price on a Provia, give them a price on a Pano, or give them you can't top it out. How do you do that?
Got to erase it and add that one again. The other ones the other items you should be able to do, but unfortunately on custom, there's no good way to take care of that yet. So you're gonna have to write that one down. Good note though for the future. So Mark, take that down. That's actually a good
And then
note.
also on that sheet right there, you have right there, you have a shaded area. So does that mean that it's?
What do you mean? What do you mean
didn't
shaded
close?
area?
See right there, the third item is.
Yeah,
shaded.
that means this right here, the grayed out means it wasn't included.
Oh.
So therefore, I believe. Yes, I believe. So we look at it.
That sheet right there is going to give us what we need. So when we get that, then the basic project manager measure tech goes out and he's got all of his information he needs to be successful inside of it, and he's not having to guess. The first page will show you this. This shows you what actually they paid for it. That makes sense? It's very important. And plus, if you want to ever stop having to go through and create a commission sheet the way we do it, this is the way we stop that, because the more fluent, the more easy they become to read, the easier it's going to become for everyone to process these things in a faster time frame. And plus, we don't have to guess what you charged. Make sense? Okay.
Actually, if you want to leave that up when I go up.
Well, you are next, my man. So
So,
if
yeah, leave that sheet up. I'm going to refer to it a little bit.
okay, and then all you do is flip right here. Yes.
So this is something that is generated and sent to you?
It's sent to me, Scott, and Larry Chavez, accounting, and everyone else sees it too.
And how do we get a hold of it?
I will make sure that that you are added to it. It's tricky though, because in the system, we got to make sure it goes just to you, not to everybody. We don't want everybody getting it. So again, with that, Scott Schenk. Round of applause, guys. There you go.
So talking about this sheet, this is really, really helpful on both ends of the business. I believe it was either Ryan or Jeremy last week made a very appropriate comment. Why am I having my commission hit and the job is just now completing? Why is this the first I'm finding out about it? And that's a completely valid point. With how our system had been up until recently, I don't know if any of you are familiar what we would see as far as what you charged for in the old system. It was a 13-page Excel spreadsheet that you had to scroll to page 13 to see what was charged, and then 2 pages back to match up what the dollar amount was with the item. So very cumbersome, and really nobody knew how to read it except Lindsay. And myself. So for me to go in and look at this sheet and see what you guys had charged for on something was very difficult. For me to audit a job took me over 2.5 hours to go in and audit one job from start to finish, labor, materials, and then find out what was charged for. So what this allows us to do now is the project manager will see exactly what was charged for on the job. So they can see now, okay, cool. The reflash was charged for, the stain, the paint was charged for, whatever items you have on the list. So there's no ambiguity anymore. It's black and white what you put on the sheet there. And then I've spoken with them. They know what the reflash package or the flashing package is. That is meant to be fluff. And my guidance to them is if they see something that you miss, some drywall or some painting or whatever else it might be, they're just going to apply that to take care of it and cover it. So nobody's going to even have to bother you as far as not charging correctly. They will just apply it.
On that job, I put $1,000 in and showed something up there to apply.
That's because that's after you discount.
You apply my plus to 65%.
Yep, that's whatever the discount, after you discounted it, that's what they paid.
Right.
So you discount my fluff.
Absolutely. Yeah, you discount, yeah, because you put it inside of it, that's what he gets discounted.
It counts as retail. So then you go in and do a 35% discount, whatever it might be. That brings that number down. So everything we do on the back end is done according to Green Line. We don't do anything retail. Retail really means nothing to us. We need to know the actual dollars that were charged for the work that's being done. So everything we do, you'll hear us talk about Green Line.
That's at the 65, right?
Yeah.
65% of whatever the retail is typically what the Green Line's going to be. So where this is going to help us significantly, you'll see on the first sheet, Dream Style Remodeling in San Diego, SOP for sales scope of work. At point of sale, sales rep produces the scope of work for the production department. Project manager reviews the scope of work needed. Once complete, if anything is missing or needs further review, it will go on to this SPR report. So that report will be sent by Jose. That'll go to the sales rep, Mark, Ed, Dustin, and myself, and then Norma as well. And the report will be sent out, and it'll say, you know, in your customer is expecting us to stain 4 doors, but there was no charge for the staining of the 4 doors in there. So that gives you an immediate notification. So you're not finding out about this a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road. And it's just, I can sympathize. It's much more difficult to acquire extra funds 1, 2, 3 months down the road than a day or 2 after it's been measured. And I'm sure you'd all agree with that.
Especially too, because if something goes in HOA hold, that can be set in there for 30 days where it's not being completely reviewed. So this eliminates that headache, is what it does.
It's the only time that would be an issue is if the customer won't let us measure until after it comes out of HOA. So again, this is another reason to get us out to the house to measure it as quickly as possible so we can identify any discrepancies and help cover all of you. So that way we can notify you right away if the customer has some kind of different expectation than is on the work order. So does that make sense? Okay.
Is this replacing the L&R report?
No. This because we can continue to move forward with the job. If Mrs. Smith expects her 2 new doors, you know, her architect reserve doors to be stained, we can continue and move forward with the job. It's not on hold. We just need clarity from you. You know, did you have a conversation with Mrs. Smith on why you didn't charge
This
for
is
the
pretty much
staining
if you
of the door?
miss something on the sell, it's giving you your chance to get the money before it moves on. That makes sense? So if you miss something and it's blatant that you charge, you know, for 10 windows, but oh shit, I forgot to stain them. And the customer, you know, you and the customer had a conversation about staining them, and it's not clearly in the notes that the customer staining them, gives you your chance to go back and get the money still before it moves on, and we just stain them to make sure the customer's happy.
Because things will get missed, but also customers every once in a while, they try to grab a little bit more than the agreement with you. They've got a new person out there. They will try and get stuff for nothing. But if we can notify you right away and you can be on it, we can prevent that from happening, prevent those customers from trying to grab something. versus, weeks or months down the road. So Jose will be sending out that report basically every day that something shows up. So any measures we had over the weekend, if there's an SPR, they'll be sending that, Jose will send that out today. So then with jobs that have become an issue, there's, say corporate doesn't want to pay you the full commission on something. You get notified that on Monday before payroll, correct?
I don't know. They get a sheet. They get sent
The
out.
commission report?
Commission report. that's sent out.
So what I need is for all of you to take a good look at that commission report, and if there's anything that you want to dispute on that, I can go in between Monday and Tuesday. I have until noon, and then I can issue a dispute for that. I'll get with Dustin and I'll get with Ed, but it requires me to do quite a bit of digging on the back end to get all of those numbers. And, trust me, if it's something that you should be paid for, I want you to be paid for it, and we will dig into it, and then I'll give my recommendation to Dustin and Ed, and then they'll proceed as necessary.
So all the commission disputes are coming to you now?
Well, if it's something that I need to go back and cost the job, because I'm the only one really with access to go into all of the installer pay sheets to audit all labor and all materials.
By turning that,
It used to be once production took it, past measure and everything, that was yours. And like any, overages or anything like that, that was because something was missed on your guys' end after you took ownership of the project. So like, I know I've got a couple that are in dispute right now that, production took it, no problem. Now there's issues where, I guess margin's too low or something, but like,
Right.
where is our responsibility? And like, once we sell it, you guys take it, you order it, and then, at that point, project manager missed something, this, that, and the other thing, we're gonna get paid for it.
Well, no, so it's what I'm finding in these jobs that I'm auditing, it's not so much something was missed. What's happening a lot of times, the price increase we did not too long ago for construction jobs? It's because jobs were coming in below margin because literally we were not charging enough money to do that work. And it was causing us to go way below margin. For example, what was the one we looked at? I can't remember whose job it was.
It's not important whose job it was. But let me, without getting into the weeds, right? Let's pull it out of the weeds and talk about specifics, what it is. The reason why we want that report is it shows us what was charged on the job, what the labor needs to be on the job based on what the charges are, and then we can keep costing our jobs out so there's 3 checks. To answer your question, it's 2 completely different things. To answer your questions, that allows us to, number one, control what was charged, control what's costed out, control what basically labor is being paid out to it. So we got our 3 reference points. If we don't have our 3 reference points to check it out, then we're paying whatever the installer feels like they should be paid, whatever the basic project manager feels like that should be paid, and then what you feel like should be paid. That's not a good way to run business. What we charge for, what is measured, and then we dictate what the installation amount is going to be based on what those figures are, because now we know. Unfortunately, we did it before. We turned in a contract. The contract for LEAP was like little to no information. So therefore, it made it really hard to start running the business after the contract was done. So therefore, there was all these things that are up in the air, right? So we didn't know what you were charging for, or if we were charging for, and let's face it, we're all learning as we went, which is why, if it was before a certain date, I'm in protection mode 100% on your fee for service. And then basically, if it's after a certain amount and I see it blatantly missed, I'm like, well, why'd we miss it, right? So there's negligence because we didn't know, and then there's negligence because we just missed. So it matters onto that. At the end of the day, the business is the one that pays. So we got to make sure we protect the business. So to answer your question, Ryan, when do we stop taking ownership of it? The purpose of doing this and turning in this report is after they get through the measure, then the project manager goes and basically pre-fills out a labor sheet on it, and that's what they're held accountable to on through that. So actually, that at that point would be them buying the project from us, as we used to talk about it. At that point, it's their baby. If they screw up, excuse my language, or basically have money that goes over and above it because of something that was messed up on that side, then that's where they have bought that. That's a mistake cost is what that runs into. So as long as basically we're all working together, then it should never come out to where we're charging. Now our figures and our amounts that we charge are all the correct amount. So you shouldn't be ever noticing unless we just blatantly miss something or priced incorrectly on anything happening after any uh-ohs or surprises. We talk about should be left for birthday parties. That's the purpose of making sure that we're all turning in these reports. That's as simple as I can tell you. You turn it in, it's all correct. The site inspector or the project manager does his printout onto it. They get signed off. At that point, you really don't have to worry about anything but getting paid at that point and visiting your job after install and getting your referrals. Moving forward.
And to go along with that, so what I'm auditing it for, an example would be, we do the work and in the middle of the job, we find out we've got to do concrete footings on this house. And we've got to do rebar, pour concrete on. There's no way you would have known that. And then that's what I'll put into the dispute when I send it to Dustin and Ed, that sales shouldn't be held responsible for this because there's no way they could have known that this was going to happen. You know, a true unforeseen. And then that's typically where I'll task either Vinny, Jose, myself, or the project manager to go try and acquire more funds from the customer because that's an unforeseen issue.
That brings up another really good point, right? So if I paper contract something and I can't get my iPad to work, my iPad contract, there's verbiage and language in that iPad contract that allows us to go back at them for those additional charges that are unforeseen, such as shear walls, such as basically, split anchors, as
Plumbing,
concrete, play, those weird ass things you got to do on construction projects you can't see. So if we don't have that signature on the iPad contract, then it screws us. Then pretty much we can be forced to take that whole bill without having any repercussions against them.
Well, isn't the project checklist, I mean, it says unforeseen conditions,
Nope.
it's specifically about.
No, it's specifically that once we get these iPad things down where they need to go, those forms will pretty much be non-existent. Right now, we've got to do those things to cover our ass to make sure that what we're missing on the other side of it is a bill or a one-off. So again, if they don't sign that iPad contract, you're leaving yourself, your commission, and the company at jeopardy. That make sense? That's why that's so important to get that iPad contract signed, because number one, it spits all the detail out. Number two, it has all the terms and conditions with their signatures on it. So therefore, there's no way that they can dispute that was sent over to them. If we have no signature, again, it's our word versus their word in the court of law pro customer. Make sense?
really, really important to get that. And then also, please do not make changes to the documents. We run into a lot of issues with that. Just had one come up on Friday where we're going to have to buy $290 worth of blinds for a customer because the salesperson on that one crossed out blinds and just put, "We're doing it." So these old blinds that have been damaged by the sun for 20 years, they basically crumbled apart when we were taking them down. And the customer's going to make us match their 20-year-old blinds, and it's going to cost us $290 for a set. So, things like that where we make changes to the documents, we cannot do that. So really, that's the meat of this first page. And then you'll have 72 hours from the time the SPR report is sent to let us know what you want to do. The problem doesn't need to be solved. You just need to give us some guidance on which direction you would want to go with that. If you want us to handle it, if you want to handle it, get Mark or Dustin or myself involved. We just need to know what you want to do within 72 hours. All right. The next one regarding measure SOPs. This was put together by Dustin. This is critically important to helping us on the back end. We need you to call pretty much every time to schedule the measurements. We chase a lot of customers where, when you're in the home, everything seems great, but now we can't get a hold of them for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and they get really stale a lot of times. If you can do a warm handoff setting up the measure, you'd be surprised the difference in the attitude of the homeowner. When you're sitting there, JC calls in, you get Rusana on the phone, and you can tell the customer, yeah, it'll be so-and-so's going to be your project manager. He's going to be here at this time on this day. Now they have a name that they can put, not just some guy who's going to be coming. Any questions that we might have, we can get answered at that time. So just please call in every time. Johnny says he'll do his best to even answer the phone after 9 o'clock if you're in a late night appointment with a customer. So please call every time. If you're not successful reaching somebody, either John or Rusana, then please send an email. The email needs to include the customer's name, the phone number, the best time to call within a 15-minute window, and then we will call the customer at that time. For structural engineering jobs, we need you to get that set up, and then all structural engineering, you must come to the office and you must meet with me, Vinny, and Ed every single time. That way we can go through the scope of work, find out what kind of expectations you gave the customer, if it's something that we could possibly go with standard engineering versus having to send an architect out to the house. There are some times that we may not need the architect to go out. Saves us a ton of money and it saves a ton of time for the homeowner as well.
In a situation like that, is the customer going to be reimbursed for the extra cost?
Yeah, if we charge them for the services of the architect and we don't need that, we would reimburse them those expenses.
What qualifies that determination and yeah, how often does that happen?
It happens enough. I'd say 20–25%, where Ed looks at it and then we can use a canned plan. Vinny goes out, Vinny can cut some drywall. We determine, oh,
I can
cool.
tell you right now, if there's anything over like 12 feet, it's probably going to be structured. There's no chance of getting in that's over like 12 feet. It just, you get into so much like with shearing and other things. The closer you are to the side of the wall too, like the corner of the house, the more likely it's going to be. There's a lot of factors that come into it. It's, you know, the ground in California with earthquakes, low water, high water levels and all that stuff. Better just to get them prepared for the worst. And then it's a great surprise, like Christmas, if we can do it.
Question. So like, not doors and these crazy door projects or anything, but you know, I'm at John Q. Public's house and he wants to put that size window in a wall. Is that structural engineering plus create opening? Because that's a $20,000 window.
There is a good chance that we will be able to do that without structural engineering.
So do we just charge the create opening?
There is, when you get in a situation like that, if you're in a house, take a picture, send it to Scott, Ed, and myself, and then one of us will get back to you with an answer.
Inside and outside. We need pictures of both.
And it's important too, if there's a door, like say this is the top of the door, what's your measurement from the door to the ceiling on the inside? And on the outside, what's your measurement from the door to the soffit on the outside? So if there's a soffit coming down onto it, all that matters because how are we going to get the beam inside of it, right? So make sure if you're going to send pictures over, don't just send a picture of the window, send a picture of the height. Tell us what the height is from the top of the door or the window up to where the soffit is or basically the interior ceiling. So we know, and it gives us a better idea of what's already in there and then what would need to go back in there if there's enough space or not.
Sure.
Because sometimes you do like a 20-foot, if you're paying attention, somebody's got like a 6-foot door and they want to put an 18-foot, 16-foot, or 20-foot. Well, if you do the math, an inch per foot, well, you could sometimes be putting big gigantic lumber or like a beam. You guys see the funny thing I put over on Saturday or Sunday where it had the truck that fell into the house, right? That's what I feel like we're going to do on some of these big projects where we're trying to put a land beam over the side of it. It can be very heavy. So again, making sure how we would get that around too and look for access. You know, if you're trying to think if I'm going to take a 20-foot beam, I'm going to take it around the house. Does it make sense on how I would get it around the house? How would I get it back there? You know, could guys carry it or is it going to be too heavy? I mean, I tell you, you take a 6-foot, even a 6-foot or even a 10-foot beam, right? Like a laminated veneer beam.
Hundreds and hundreds of
you're talking 300-400 pounds just itself. So you take the car and back around to the area of it is super heavy. Super heavy. So it's going to take manpower, if not a crane or some kind of a device to get it around there. Because we're getting into some of that construction stuff, it can be super freaking heavy. So
No,
just
but
be
what Ryan was talking about was creating an opening.
I understand what he's talking. That's why I told you a second ago, take a picture from the inside, take a picture from the outside, and shoot it to us three, and then we'll make the decision on what you should charge. Okay?
Is there, because I do this a lot, is there a way to put into LEAP a charge for closing a window? Because I get into these projects where they've got 55 windows and they're like little transit windows. You know, we can save a lot of money not doing the window, closing off the window.
There's not a charge in there for that?
There's,
I was almost positive
There
there was.
used to be, and there used to be one.
so to close on an opening would be, you know, because I don't know what you guys want for that. I charge about $300 to $500.
Shrink, what's shrink opening?
That's just making it smaller.
No, what's the charge?
$1,300.
Yeah, shrink opening. Because 1,300 times 0.65 is
$1,000
what?
to close up the window.
Times, what? Well, you've got to frame it. You've got to do the drywall. You've got to paint the drywall. You've got to do the lath and the plaster, paint the stucco on the outside. So, I mean, if you're talking about 16 feet, just for the stucco is $175.
Shrink opening is $23.76.
2376? Yeah, that's high. So it would need to be somewhere probably about $700.
Yeah, that's fine, it's just gotta be cheaper than the window.
Yeah.
Lower opening is $1,100. And then you get 65% of that, you're right around.
So lower opening, you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, do
That would-
lower opening.
I mean, a lot of it depends on what the outside is too. The
Yeah.
siding, or if it's stucco, or if it's brick, or.
This, when you get into stucco, it's the freaking matching and the, you know, basically the finish coat, the matching, that you gotta tie it all in, you got the paper. It can be a pain in the ass. And that's what, I've been watching, if you've never done it, YouTube basically stucco repair
Mhm.
or YouTube stucco patches. It's interesting. So I was watching it this morning actually, because I've got such a great repertoire of stuff I like to do. But I was watching like stucco repair, right? Because I'm like, I'm damn bound to either start a stucco company on the side or something with the amount of freaking stucco that we're doing. And sit there and check it out, right? But it's actually a pain in the butt to get that stuff matched out. Because they have to basically they gotta make sure that the paper's inside of there correctly. They gotta do the chicken wire, they gotta stucco it, they gotta do the finish coat. And it takes you can't even paint it for like 72 hours after they basically have that stuff set. So it's not like they just patch it and they're gone. They gotta basically patch it, let it all sit there, dry in, feather it, so that way it kind of matches as close as possible. And then after that happens, then they got to go back and put a finish coat on there. And sometimes a third trip to basically paint it. There could be 3 trips just for that one stucco patch. So you got 3 times getting in a car and going. So if you're in Ramona, you know, you got 3 times back and forth that could be having to be costed in there to figure all that stuff out, which is why, you know, we want to be careful on that. And it's not saying it's a great idea. I've been in your position 100%. I know. I'd rather build in sometimes and put that window in because that little ass window being $2,000 can definitely be taking, I can definitely increase my chance of selling it if that's like $500-700. Get 100%. I'm just telling you that with everything that's included in doing that, you got to build that momentum and explain to them that, hey, even though we're doing this for you, let me explain to you how hard it is to take something that's been there for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 30 years, 40 years, and try to match that thing up the best of our ability. Right? Because we've all been by the houses we look at that have been patched or they try to put a known construction window and it looks like toilet. So again, we want to, you know, we can't leave somebody's house and look like toilet. Our name would be shot. Somebody take their picture, put it online, we'd be screwed, right? So again, we've got to make sure it's all finish ready and looking good, so that way we're set up. But 1105, right? Is that we agree on?
Yeah, that's for a standard size opening. I mean, if you're trying to do something like this, that's going to be a lot more than that. So a little 4x4, 4x5 window, standard stucco, standard T111 siding, standard drywall, that'll be fine. So we're attacking profitability for the company from a lot of different directions right now. It's the project managers are auditing every pay sheet that's turned in by an installer or one of our trades. And they are kicking back tons of stuff that used to sneak by the installers, which erodes our profit margins and, you know, basically can put you in a bad position if your job went below where it's supposed to be. So they are policing the heck out of the installers right now. And they're also just making sure that homeowners aren't trying to grab things that, you know, wasn't charged for, you didn't agree was going to be done for them. So the project managers are really stepping up and, you know, keeping the company's best interests at heart. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to check on tile. It was on our old sheet and it's not on the new sheet. So what do you want, like on the showers, especially if we're doing reflash and they're gonna redo their shower? I always say, let's just tap out that top row of tile so that we're not putting it over and they've got a clean line, so when
That
they
would be
redo their shower.
modify mine. When you get into that, we want to try to stay away, but again, I want to see a picture of that.
We tile all day long. It's just like a little tapping.
I understand.
Depending on the tile.
But we still want to take a look at it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see that before you just tell somebody you're going to tap out tile. Because you can tap out tile and then you get a stress, like hairline crack inside that tile wall. And then next thing you know, you're redoing the entire tile wall. So you have to be careful with it. I agree with you. In some cases, it's absolutely needed. But let's take a look at those on an individual basis when you run into it, just to make sure we're not opening a can of worms up.
Okay, so what's our price? I'll send you pictures. You know I'm good at that, but give me a number.
I got to see it first. I mean, if you've got a bazillion little itty bitty tiles, that's going to be different than 5x5 tiles.
Yeah.
And I've got to make sure that I have the individual on staff that has the technical ability to do it. So I'll take a look at it. If it's just basic 5x5 tiles, I'll be like, oh yeah, Angel can handle that, Fernando can handle it.
And remember, as a great consultant in the house, because we're all great, then I want to make sure you put a note that that's something that we would be doing so everybody knows. And he knows who he can put on staff to install that. Because with your notes and what you put in there dictates on what installation crew we're going to be able to put on that job, right? You can't just, you know, think of them all as master tradesmen and everybody's the best at everybody. It's kind of like you guys in here. If I put, you know, one of you guys on a panoramic door with a 20-foot cut opening, you've never been on that before, you'd be like, whoa, right? But some people are like, tee it up, baby. Can't wait to get it, right? So therefore, we make sure again that everybody's got different skill sets.
How about to cut back the tile versus taking it out, like angle grinder, just to get the window in there?
Yeah.
I've heard installers talking about doing that rather than tapping it out like she's referring to.
It's going to depend what it is that's in there. You know, for example, you have tile that's on a backsplash that has that fiberglass mat that's behind it. You can't just tap that out. You've got to cut that out. So, but if it's just, you know, some of your basic 5x5, you know, what subway tiles or whatever they're called, you know, you can tap those out. So it's going to be on a case by case.
So you want us to take a picture and send it to you no matter what?
Me, Vinny, Jose, and Dustin.
And myself.
Money that's
You wanna
added
add it?
after the fact, like, let's just say, you know, let's John Q, whomever, you know, now you're tunneling out concrete and moving gas lines and, you know, they go get this money after the fact. Is that commissionable? Do we get paid on that?
Yeah, you should.
Because we don't, like, something like that, I've never been sent like a change order from a project manager, be like, oh, hey, add this in.
Norma should be doing that whenever we do a price increase on a job, because project managers are prohibited from collecting any kind of commission. So if it increases the job, you know, that's just my gut. Ed and Dustin would be able to answer
Sometimes
that.
what we do if the customer's balking really bad, we'll do it as a pass-through cost. That way no one sees it, only the company's the one that benefits from it. Or if it's going to depend on the customer's not going to do it, or they're going to try to cancel based on the extra amount. Sometimes we'll do it as a pass-through too. So it's not everything is just, hey, black and white, but if we actually go back there and put our same margin, which we try to do 100% of the time,
Right.
then yes, you would get the commission.
I can say this much, I think there hasn't been anything that's been fixed or repaired or taken care of for the customer that we can gain money on.
What do you mean?
We haven't changed anything to accommodate what the customer was expecting that wasn't on the agreement, that the company made any money on. In most cases, we lost.
Where I would use an example is like if customer wants to add another window and he calls up Ryan and, hey, Ryan, customer wants to add a window.
That's happening. I mean, like, just like a weirdo charge, you know, like,
Construction costs.
yeah, like, hey, you
A
know,
lot of the times we run into gas lines and things like that, we pretty much try to let the gas company work directly with the customer, or basically whoever the subcontractor is, so it's just almost like a pass-through. Because we don't, you walk in there at some points, they're like already crapping themselves and pissed off that we didn't catch it, which sometimes you can. So we try to mitigate the risk as well as we can without us paying to do their project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and a lot of times we're not getting full green line amount. We're essentially getting enough money to cover our expense a lot of times.
Just real quick on the subject, creating opening.
He's got 2 minutes,
I
he's
know,
gotta
I know,
get the
this
hell
is
out
fine,
of
you're
here.
gonna say something. So say we're creating an opening, making a door where there wasn't one, there was a window. Does that cost and create an opening include the stoop or the pad that they need to step out
No.
onto?
No, it does not. And and they are responsible for it themselves, and it has to be 7 inches. Is that correct?
I don't know about the 7 inches, but that would typically be on the homeowner. Is you get into pouring concrete and the rebar and excavating this stuff out of there. It sounds simple. Please, I got a job I want you to go visit. Stephanie Jewell out in El Cajon. They 4 days now to dig 3 holes, 3 feet deep in clay, lay the rebar. I got 3 guys out there just to dig 3 holes 5 days. It's not easy stuff.
But we tell them when we do that that's their responsibility to put a pad in place. That's what I do.
Yeah, and for something like that, if they want us to do it, I want the guys who are gonna do the work to go out
Can I give
there
you a
with
quick
me.
fix on that? I did a lot of these things, like modifications where you cut holes in walls, even for patio rooms and stuff. I would tell them guys what I would do to make sure we come through to pass any kind of final inspection onto, there's gonna have to be a little landing on here. You know, you ever gone down to Home Depot, Lowe's and seen basically those, like paver stones that come into it? Go out there, set yourself a little paver stone, put some paver stones up the side of it while you're deciding really what you want to finish off outside of here. Sometimes people want to do stairs, they want to build little decks, they want to do other things like that to really maximize the look and the outside of it. So rather than rushing and getting something done, if you do go ahead and put those little paver stones down there up to the door, a lot of times that's going to give us enough to pass code. And then secondly, it's going to give you time to decide what you really want to do back there. That sounds like a good fit, doesn't it? So I've done that 1,000 times on that same exact situation, and it works. Because you never know if they want to put some crazy elaborate ass stair on the outside of what they want to do. All you're trying to do is buy yourself time and not an expense, add to the expense if you don't have to. If you're going to charge a stair or a landing, I guess, if you're doing concrete, that's expensive. We don't want to get into saw cutting out and basically jackhammering and pulling out and hauling away and then basically rebarring into another pad. We don't make money on that. That's not.
The first thing is, will you guys do that?
That's always what they say.
We can do anything, but I want the right person to go out there and bid out the scope of work. That's going to be Vinny, and that's going to be one of the construction crew leaders. It's because they're going to think of things that you and I are not going to think of. And every time we get involved in concrete, even if you charge $2,000-3,000, we still end up losing on it because it's such a pain.
And then to get a concrete out there for that little job, he's going to hit you for a small job fee, which is a minimum of $2,000. So you get it. You can get 8 up pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's that way across the United States. I don't care where you're at.
Yeah, concrete it's a loser unless you go in just triple what you think a ridiculous amount of money is, and then it's probably even more than that. All right, anything else?
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you running. All right, Mr. Moore.
Oh, we're always interested. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll bring it over.
Cool.
both. He's gonna start, I'm gonna have him or Vinny or somebody start coming in like weekly and just take 10 minutes. I'm setting a timer literally after 10 minutes.
That was about 10 minutes, right?
What's that?
Let's get people.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Vinny or basically, we're gonna bring Vinny or one of these, they basically project me. Yeah.
Musical interlude.
What's up with the screen? I got them on those two, but not on this one. Is there I don't know. Just tell me to look back there for right now. There it goes. Just keep rolling.
Okay.
I'll work on that.
All right. So apologize for not having the screen. Sorry, guys and OC. But you should have received this. So on the back screen, you probably got the Green Sky Wells Fargo First Security Bank. I am still trying to get some information from Jackie to see what's available. But as you can see here, we got the 12 months, same as cash. That's what we've been using. We also have 6 months. There is the 24, it's not available yet. I guess last I talked to Jackie, that might be coming back on, might be coming back in June. So next month. And then the 18 months, that's what I'm trying to find out is that something that's available now? The difference with the 18 months is there is a fixed principal payment. So it is a no interest, it is not a no interest, no payment, it's a no interest loan. But with fixed principal payments. Okay, kind of like what we used to do. We used to do like, I think it was 12 months, 18 months, and 3 years, 36 months. So that hopefully is available, so that might be something you can take advantage of for people that want to go beyond the 12 months. Wells Fargo, I don't see anything that's changed there. That looks about right to me. Just note there is a 5.99 for an 81 term. The nice thing about Wells Fargo is the homeowners do not have to start making a payment until after the project has been completed. The case program. So, however long it takes for that project to be completed when their first bill will be. So, a couple things that's nice about Wells Fargo. They do offer a no interest. They don't have the same as cash, the no-nos, but they do have the no interest, and they do have to make principal payments every month. A quick question on the Wells Fargo. Are they starting to pay interest from the day they sign until it's complete, or does that project not get funded till the end and that's when the interest starts?
Correct. So until it's funded, it's not paying anything, there's no interest. And then after that point, then it begins to move. All right. So that was number one. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, for security, I saw there's a $4.99 for 10 years. I mean, is that something that, an option we can use?
Great question. I'm going to assume so, if it's available. I've never used them. Has anybody used
Jeremy has.
Mark has? Jeremy?
Security.
For security?
Yeah.
So have you used the 4.99?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is available. There you go.
So how do you go about doing that, Jeremy?
I mean, what's the paperwork and you just fill out everything, it's like that. Obviously, the one finance expectations form. And there's a good chance that you might end up with it, depending on how large the child is. But I don't know what I'm going to everything's about being that, but I mean, they'll move up to 99,000 on like the 8-month plan. They'll approve up to 99,000 for people that have like 700. So they buy, and then the 620 or 640, whatever, obviously.
Thank you.
But I love that. Like whatever, as much as I can do.
I think the nice thing is it's another option. So if Green Sky, denies
Yeah, Wells Fargo, and you definitely have, First Security, and maybe that's something that I could talk to Jackie, and maybe have her, not meet us here, but maybe she could do a Skype or something like that, where she can kind of explain it, or over the phone, where she can kind of explain. We might end up using it a little more often if we do more about it, as another option.
When is that dealer fee kick in? Do we have to be aware of that?
Well, right. 8%.
Yeah, I think it's already, so part of it's already built into the price of the project, and then whatever the difference is. So,
We don't know at this point.
we don't know if it's, okay. All right. So the second thing I wanted to go over real quickly is talk a little bit about,
Sorry, I'm playing around with a bunch of stuff over here. Trying to get this thing going.
You're on.
All right, so I'm thinking of an example here of a contract. So there's a little confusion here as you're reading.
So let me time out on that finance thing for you go moving forward on that, right? First off, keep it simple. You don't need to be screwing with the finance rate until it's an objection. So right now, what your stuff is on there. I don't want you getting confused or starting getting off track because you're worried about 2%. That's until it's an issue, it's a non-issue. You need to continue to keep working at the 6.99 at 60, 84, 84 and 120. And then if they tell you I'm not paying that interest rate, then you can flip it. Don't make the main thing make the main thing the main thing. If you're in a house and basically they're interest savvy and they're all about interest, or, basically I guess you can flip there if you want to. First Security is a good company, but are basically they're paying, literally the interest rate are basically the dealer fees are high. And then secondly, they've got some good programs. I think eventually we might utilize more of them. But for the stand being right now, I don't want you getting confused in the house. I want you focusing on what's on the iPad, and that's what you want to focus on. Again, if they commit that it is about interest rate and that's it, then basically then you can focus on going to the 4.99 or something to that nature. That makes sense? Okay. Because even Green Sky's got a 5.99 you see on there for 60 months. So there's avenues, and I'm working my butt off right now to try to get the 2.99 and 4.99s and things like that back anyways. So I don't want you going in there and screwing with things and jacking your old finance rate up while we're finally getting it together, because I will come unglued. Okay? No joke about it. No joke about it. Okay? So I'm just telling you, keep it simple. Customers will project that. Your brain needs to be focused on what you're doing in the close, not what rate you can go to just because you can go there. Okay? Jeremy's been doing it for how long? You been doing this now, Jeremy? 8 years, right? So he's got a little extra time under his belt where he's a little more comfortable at the end than some of us are going to be. So until you perfect that close down to the fullest extent and you've got financing figured out, don't even worry about it. Okay? All right.
All right, so back to this one. So here's an example of confusion. So if you were looking at this, let's say you were back at corporate, or you were even in production, maybe in the front office, and you saw this form, what do you see could be confusing?
Doesn't add up.
Okay.
It's supposed to be 1,000.
Amount finance $1,300.
It looks like the positive amount finance flip.
It's supposed to be $1,000.
So let's start with the deposit. What's wrong with the deposit?
10 times too
It
much.
can't be over
It's gonna be over 1,000. So corporate's gonna look at that and say, you know what, you gotta take that back. Now, I understand what's going on here. Sorry about that. Siri knows. I can tell you right now that, most likely that was meant to be $1,000 deposit, and then the rest was gonna be by check. And it was gonna be a check that the project manager was going to collect, probably 5,000 or 4,500, and then the final payment would be another 4,500 in check or cash.
Mark, they're asking you in Orange County to yell because you talk too quiet.
because he's so far away.
I'm so far away, so I understand it was monitor.
Well, that TV's not
Put the
working.
thing there.
All right, I'll walk back over here. Yeah, turn around so you can see it. There you go. All right, so deposit number one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through this and what's the best way to do it. Obviously, estimated monthly payment, assuming that maybe this is the same as cash, you're not gonna have any estimated monthly payment, but if there was an APR, you definitely wanna make sure you put the estimated monthly payment. So what happens a lot of times is the project manager, when he goes out and he's sitting down with the homeowner, he's gonna say, okay, you owe me $5,163. Can I get a check for that? Because that's the way he interprets that. See how there's confusion? And then when the final payment, they're gonna do the same thing. Now, obviously, the customer will say, wait, why do you have to collect that much? It was only supposed to be $4,500. So what we wanna do is remove the confusion. So this is what I'm proposing. I talked to Dustin. And we agree the best way to handle this going forward is use your notes. So, check and finance, you got $1,000 deposit. Okay, so that brings it down to $10,346. You're gonna collect $4,500 at measure and then $4,500 at completion. The balance is finance, 12 months, same as cash. So now they know what they're collecting. They can see how much is going to be financed, only $1,326. Obviously, we didn't have to do any estimate on payments because it's same as cash. We don't know how much they're monthly, depending on when they want to pay it. Measure payment. They are going to collect $4,500. The only reason the final payment is slightly higher is because our company will not only collect the check, but eventually we're going to get paid the full amount from the financing. So that's where the difference is. So those two numbers plus the deposit will equal the contract amount.
So, quick question I have, because the RBA, we have to use a little bit different. But the verbiage here specifically says the down payment may not exceed $1,000, but then there's a deposit. So are they the same?
No. Deposit and measure payment are two completely different things. What we want to do is on deposit is really deposit, is what you're taking from the house that day.
Okay.
Okay? And then measure payment is what our measure technician would pick up if he was going out there physically to the house to pick it up.
So
the rest of the amount goes into final payment. And because your declaration page you're putting, you know, it's from Green Sky, it's going to talk about your finance expectation page. It talks about that page right through there, which talks about basically your half payment on financing. That's what gives us the right to pull that amount. So we don't want to confuse the measure text by thinking they're picking up $4,500. If they're not picking up $4,500, we want them knowing exactly what they are. If you're trying to just decorate to the customer so there's no oopses and uh-ohs, then that's what you would put in your notes up here, talking about what the basically finance company is going to give us on basically, you know, after we order the windows and after basically the rest was completed.
So two quick questions. So the deposit should never exceed $1,000 in this form.
No, never 10% or $4,000.
Yeah, okay. And the notes, where in LEAP do you put those notes specifically?
When you're filling this information out, so if I was to go back,
Okay, I got you. I know.
you know what it's at, you'll see a notes there. I
Yeah,
think
okay.
you just kind of skip over, but it's
Gotcha.
there.
Mark, using that illustration, when is that final payment?
Final payment is upon completion, so when the project manager goes out there,
I thought it was 12 months,
Yeah,
saying it's cash, so wouldn't it be at the end of 12 months?
They're gonna sign a completion certificate. It's just, they're gonna sign a completion certificate at that point, which means the bank releases the money to us. And they have 12 months to pay the bank, they have 12 months. to
Oh,
pay
so
the
they,
bank.
we don't, the project manager does not collect.
Yeah, that's why the
That's why I have the
notes say
notes.
$4,500.
Yeah, but I thought that the 1,300, the 13, whatever, I thought that was the same as cash for 12 months, and that wouldn't be due until the end of 12 months, correct?
yeah, but that's totally separate. That's a different contract.
How did you increase the final
Because this is
payment
what
from
we get
4,500?
paid. This is what we get paid.
But we don't get a check from the customer, we get a check from the bank.
We get a
You
check.
don't, here's what you don't do, you don't worry about it.
There's another piece of paperwork.
At the end of the day, once they sign the complete, after you're done with that, then just all they gotta know is where it says finance, the bank will release, we'll work the
The
regular.
customer,
bank.
understand, if the customer looks at this, they're thinking that says they owe not 4,500 in, but they owe the 58 something.
No, there's specific notes right above where it says 4,500.
Amount financed.
Yeah.
See what it says amount financed, 13. Right here, amount financed, $1,300.
I'm just saying, it's gonna look like for the customer that they owe a check of 5,800 or something with the completion of the project, when that's not the case.
So the way I can describe that, Mike, the additional
There's another piece of paperwork.
authorization to release the amount, let's say, the finance company is releasing this at the final payment, and that's what that's for.
So they'll know they don't owe us a check for them.
You'll explain, when you're going through your final paperwork, you'll.
Yeah. That form will help over.
So this is key. Notes, 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 notes. So use your notes now if you're gonna be going with cash.
Gotcha.
I also recommend, even if it's all financed, it doesn't say anything on here, what's the finance plan? So I would use your notes if it's gonna be same as cash, 6.99 APR for whatever. You know, just put it in the notes. So more information is better. Okay? Second thing, real quick, oops, sorry. Go and delete. So second thing that has come up, and we just want to make sure we touch on, is when building a project, if you want to pad your project, the best way to do it is, it's going to not show up in additional notes, so that's not going to be where you want to be. You're going to put it in custom package or custom product. So just put in a flashing package, and then you can put in the price. So let's see what that looks like. Let me go back. There you go. So custom product, you open up custom product, you just add flashing package, add whatever you want to pad. Hit done. The benefit is obviously the homeowner's not going to see this. You see this, but they won't see it. Let's see. It'll come up somewhere on the contract.
That's easy to explain.
I mean, here I'll say flashing package, there won't be any price. If you want to use this to romance, I tend to use this page to romance. But at least, again, you're not going to have the price in there. That's it, I don't have anything more. So use your flashing package. Question came up one time and said, well, what happens if you have reflash included? And then they see flashing package. You could say the reflash is the labor, flashing package is material. Easy enough.
If they're doing inserts, then you just say.
Flashing package. They're not going to question it.
No one's ever questioned that on every single job.
Yeah.
Exactly my word.
Any other questions, anything? All right. Happy Mother's Day to the ladies. I know it's a day late, but all right. Hopefully you had a good day. So. Secondly, reviews real quick before we get off Mark's I popped it on and not wanting to forget last night when I put the review thing on it. So I knew basically when I saw the review pop up, it would remind me. We're focused really hard on online reviews and presence. So making sure that we are picking up that message is a big thing. And I'll pop this back here so they can see it. So reviews is we want to go online and post, basically get our customers to post on Google. You know, we do have a Yelp now, and we have a Google, Yelp, basically Facebook. We're opening an Instagram account. We have all these different avenues we go through, right? So think about it. Get tricky, right? Before and after pictures. That's good stuff to submit. You know, Miles and his team is literally going to be the social media group. If you want them to post it on our Facebook account, you want to post it on our Facebook account. I want to start getting into before and after picture of the month, you know, testimonial of the month. Get yourself video testimonials. This guy named King Cloud in St. Louis writes about he writes now about 2 million, 2.5 million a year in that little market.
And literally, what he does a video review with every single one of his customers. Hey guys, and he's holding it up like this with them. And just, it's not that great of a video, but he sets where he's got all of his customers' names in his video setting there, which helps him testimony. Then he throws it on his own personal Facebook account and throws it on basically the work one too. So it shows these people laughing the whole time and having a good time. They tell their honest opinion of it. And he sets there right there to police it. So he knows they're not going to say anything he doesn't want them to say, right? So he's got that kind of segmented thing. Secondly, yourself, go on to Yelp right now. Write a review about, Dreamstar Modeling and what you like about working here. And then basically leave out the stuff you don't like, but leave the stuff that you do like. So, me or Mark, if you like Mark more than me, it's fine, I don't care. Basically, but the purpose is write a review on there, because what that does is more reviews on there on our 5 stars moves us up the search on the Yelp side of it. So again, the more we can organically make that search go up while we're waiting to get our customer reviews in there, again, it helps our online search. Right now, I think we're 7th, which means that we just don't have enough reviews going onto there. So if everybody in this office just went and did 1, and by the way, whoever does the best one, I'll go ahead and throw a $50 gift card at. So again, that's the best one. Whoever does the best one.
Dustin is awesome.
Yeah, that's it. Dustin is the best. He's the greatest guy I've ever met. Make sure you use my name and you'll get. I'm just kidding. Yeah, say you mentioned this ad. All right, so real quick, I got a little video I want to share with you guys, and I'll tell you a story when we get into today's message. I think you'll like today's message. If you listened to the last Zoom call, you would have heard me kind of roll through it. So we're going to go in a little in depth today, a little deeper, so you get a general understanding. Because I feel like we are doing a lot of things good, but we can get even better. So I'm going to take you back in the days when I first started in this industry, what I call blocking and tackling. And we're going to make sure that we understand how to block and tackle a little bit better before we get into it. And it's blocking and tackling probably you do, but we're going to take it to a different level so you understand why. We're going to break out in teams, and we're going to base on one of our 3 thieves, and we're going to focus ourselves on it. So before we get into it, enjoy.
The weight of what it feels like to want to be successful every single day, over and over and over. It's just too much pressure. People crack. You got to persevere. You must insist that this is going to happen. You got to get in there and keep fighting. You got to be constantly at it. Everybody got to develop some dog in them. You got to say, I'm going to hang in here now. I'm going to hang in here. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to stay with it no matter what.
At the very end state, what really wins it isn't the potential of a person, it's the perseverance, the heartbeat of a person. That heart doesn't stop. The heart doesn't go 9 to 5 and then shut down. It's always be just like a true champion. It doesn't just exist in the arena, but it exists everywhere else too. Those moments and inches that are won at the final hour that make or break a win or loss are discovered there. Discovered through thousands of hours in a training lab. When no one's watching, you get up and run at 5 in the morning when it's pouring down rain. As a person accountable that values who they are. There's a half-ass here, half-ass there, and then when it matters, you my all. You can work the way. Everyone wants it, but somebody wants it more. Where does all the grace that we have in our lives come from? It all comes from people who, in the face of massive adversity, decide that they're going to move forward regardless. They're going to make the thing that they want to happen, no matter what anybody says, no matter how many times they get laughed at, no matter how many times they get called crazy, no matter what, they're going to make this happen. We have the ability to make the choice to be the person who rises above the shit. If you keep making the choice to take the things that happen to you and turn them into good, productive things, there is no way that you cannot be successful.
So this morning, I heard on like the little mentor chat, it's pretty cool. I talked about Mike Tyson. And I'm not a huge Mike Tyson fan, but I respect the hell out of what he did when he was, boxing, right? They said that they went in and they talked about they got tickets. They got tickets to go to basically his show, and they bought him last second. There was probably 75, 100 people maybe in the show, not a gigantic amount, but he talked about his trials and, all his heartaches and the different things and his pros and his ups and downs. And, obviously knowing that he was, inducted at a young age into the Boxing Hall of Fame is pretty cool. My, actually uncle, Sean O'Grady, was just inducted in there too, which I thought was pretty cool. It's, he was a light featherweight champ of the world for a long time. So, I got a small boxing background. I don't box myself, but growing up, my family, we learned to love it, right? So I pay attention to those people that are what I consider greats. When you look at it, though, he's telling his story. And he talks about, trials and tributes, and everybody thinks that he just walked up and he was just a mean SOB, right? He was just that tough and always that tough and strong as nails. And basically what it, made him the person he is just because his strength, right? And his brute and basically his domination of people, right? You just think he'd be the schoolhouse bad boy, right? When you meet him in the schoolyard, you want to walk the other way, you want to be a little freaked out of him. When it happened to be, it wasn't that case at all, right? It talked about growing up. His nickname in his neighborhood was called Fairy Boy, right? You talk about he basically used to get beat up. He got thrashed. He was in neighborhoods basically where obviously people were shooting each other, all the fun stuff, low poverty-stricken neighborhoods, right? So he talked about one day he met his trainer, and his trainer was basically same guy's trained a couple big names. I can't think of exactly what his name. I just heard it this morning. But what's that?
Gus D'Amato.
Gus D'Amato. There you go. Gus D'Amato, right? So we look at Gus D'Amato. He sat there and he trained. He said, boy, after watching him in there, he says, I can make you the next world champion. And he's like, whatever. He didn't think anything of it, but he started training with him, right? So he said, but you got to do the things that aren't popular, right? So he woke up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning to go run. And the reason he said he did it, not because he wanted to get up, he hated to get up. I just say he figured his competitors probably weren't doing it. They gave him a stand up, right? He talked about how many hours he spent in the gym. He said he spent, on average, anywhere between 55 hours he spent in the gym, actually working in the gym after running at 4:30 for basically 3 to 5 miles every morning. Actually, look at that hard work, right? You don't see that behind the scenes. And all the dedication, hard work he did to put inside of it is a big deal. So you look at some of the successes and some of basically created his dominance as a boxer, he was fun to watch, right? They had that Mike Tyson's punch out when I was a kid on there. You kind of wanted to be like, if you were going to be a boxer, you kind of wanted to be like Mike Tyson. So when I looked at it, I put these two little basically questions almost, or statements on the board. Right? So you think about it, how many of you would go to a doctor that doesn't study? Think about it. If you were going to go out and you needed a doctor, say you got some severe thing going on to it, how many, you got a terminal illness, say that you woke up tomorrow, God forsake, none of that ever happened, but we had cancer. How careful would you be with the doctor that that's going to be terminal? Would you go to a guy that doesn't study, a guy that's been doing it 60 years and been doing it the same way every single time? Or would you want a guy that's basically up to date on the most modern technologies, medicines, things of that nature, right? So again, studying is kind of like what we do, right? You think about what we do inside of a house. If all I do is I go to work every day and try to do my best and I do nothing to keep getting better, what's putting me above my competition? What's putting me as the recommended solution, right? Because prescription for malpractice is diagnosis, right? And if we're one of those people that walk in the house and start selling a solution too early, I'm not a doctor. I'm gonna say so. I'm a columnist. I'm giving you my column. I'm telling you what I think is right and wrong. I'm not basically giving you a diagnosis, right? Second, counterfeit versus the real deal. I heard this in church actually on Sunday. I thought it was pretty cool. So I started thinking about all the different people we go up against, right? You go up against truck in the trucks, truck and ladder guys, basically your cost conscious type of companies outside of there, right? You deal with other people that sell a Pella product, an Anderson product, the other aspects inside of there. So we look at, even though they sell the product, are they counterfeit or are they the real deal? Think about that. Are they counterfeit or are they the real deal? So you're going up against most people out there in the industry. What do you think you're going up against? If I'm going against a guy that goes to Lowe's and buys his windows and comes out and installs it in the house, is that a real deal or is that counterfeit? Think about how you can use just a little statement like that and flip your brain into understanding and awareing people of our situation, right? 96% of all contractors fail in the first 2 years. 80% of people think the cheapest bid had big problems getting completed. If I don't get my mindset, wrapped around what basically I'm going up against and who my competitors are before I even walk in and group them all into one setting, I'm not doing everything I can be doing to be successful. I'm just going at block and tackling the one way I know how to block and tackle, that's all I'm doing. You know, when's the last time you printed out your, competitive warranties? Taking competitive estimates? When you got brochures, right? Found out about the companies you run up against. I always had a rule. I said, if you beat me once, that's the last time it's going to happen because I'm going to figure out how to crush you next time. And that's what mindset you have to be into. It ain't freaking money. Money is there. Sean, what's your favorite line? You say money is only an issue in the absence of value.
Price is only an issue,
Yeah. Price, money. Only an issue in the absence of value, right? So you look at that thing, how many times we put ourselves in that same situation, that same position? If I'm going into a proximity appointment, I'm going into an events appointment, which happened, right? And lately our percentages have been going up because now we're more aware of how to handle the situations. And we talked about a couple things on it. But I'm going to show you a trick of life that I did in the house from a very early age that made me a crap load of money. And it's one of the things I think of in training we go through on the first day of training when I'm teaching you to be a great inspector. And if you lose it, what happens is in the mix of all the other stuff, you can lose it. You can lose it and you forget it, and all these great nuggets you feel like you have are in one ear and out the other. So what I'm going to do, since you guys are all masters of your own game, we're going to break you up in 3 different sections. I'm going to have you guys attack something 3 different ways. Now the form of this attack is just to show, number 1, am I doing it? Number 2, how well I'm doing it. Number 3, am I mastering it, right? And what I want to do is when we get through it in a group, I don't want one person saying everything. I want you to take your time going around the group. And I want you guys to all give something that you do to make a big difference into it. And then I have 3 slides that I'll show you on what I did in 35 minutes to basically share with you on how to better basically explain some of this stuff. Because when you deal with energy efficiency, when you deal with security, those 2 things right there are the reasons why 90% of your homeowners call. Maybe it's operational reliability is part of your security, because if the windows aren't locking and they're not operating correctly, that could afford that part of it, right? But the thing is, let me explain something to you. Don't take this wrong. But none of you are that good yet. None of you are that good yet. None of you are that good yet. And the reason why, you still have so much to learn. And if you ever get to that point where you think you're that good, that's when you fail. It's when your numbers start degressing rather than regressing, right? Because either you need to understand construction better. You understand what actually takes to get into something. You need to understand the process a little better. You need to understand the thought process. Yeah? Maybe it's now you've reached this part of it. Now we need to start teaching you NLP, right? What is it that you want to do to take your game to the next level? Have you gotten comfortable and think that you know it all and you stop listening? Have you gotten basically to a point where we make sure that, again, we're like that doctor that's been doing it 100 years, that's had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 successful surgeries, and I'm just going to keep doing it that same way and not realize there might be a better way? Or you're going to basically open your ears up and make more money you've ever made for the rest of the year. The part I'm sharing with you, and I say this a lot, but if I could show you how to make $50,000 more this year than you did last year, are you interested?
Yeah.
Really?
Hello? Yes, please.
Yes. Because let me share with you, there was a name called Pacesetter that happened way back in the day. And they taught us basic things as far as thermos bottles on how to sell windows. Basic things as far as, blocking and tackling to teach us how to sell windows to people that felt like they weren't in a position to sell windows, right? Now, if you don't have a 50% close or 30% close or 25, or maybe, excuse me, not even 25, you don't have a 30% plus close, 40% plus close on basically proximity marketing, you'd open your ears. You don't have a 40% plus close on events leads, open your ears, okay? There was a lead in St. Louis, it was an Ace Hardware lead. And Ace Hardware leads, I closed those at 80%. 80%. Proximity, I was closing proximity over 60% because I use this very simple method that I haven't spent a lot of time sharing with you because we haven't really ran that many proximity or events appointments until now. So now, instead of saying that thing, well, they're just not ready yet to move forward. We caught them before they're ready. They'll call us when they're ready. I hate to tell you, you walked away from business. If that's the way you're thinking, you walked away from business. Because there is money to be had on those appointments, and everybody thinks they're a year or two out. Until you can teach them what they don't know, is there. So when you're going through these three things, I want you to sell the why, or think about why you're selling the why when you're coming over these three things. So when we look at the three thieves, right? First off, infiltration, air leaks. Right? Could be water leaks. There's a video I went and pulled off YouTube over the weekend. It's phenomenal. Shows this guy with a window leak. And he comes down, the water's leaking down in between it, and it shows him taking his siding up and literally taking a flat edge and cutting all the way down behind the stucco because the water's rotted and peeled off away from it because the windows weren't installed correctly. There's a second thing, which is the project inspector. Project inspector has, they called this company out, which is it's environment come out. I've saved them both on my iPad. And literally they're shooting water at the window, talking about how the window wasn't installed correctly. And it's not leaking around the retrofit window. It's leaking through the old frame. Again, talking about exactly what we did. Took me 3 minutes to find those videos. So there's thousands of things we can throw in our repertoire to show improper installation, right? And talk about what's going to happen if they do it wrong. But what's going to happen if they do nothing at all? How do we sell against them doing nothing at all? Because really, when you're talking about events and you're talking about proximity, we're fighting against them, just putting the brakes on. I love you, I love what you got to say. When it comes time, we're definitely the window goes, but I don't feel like it's that bad enough that I need to spend that much money. So we're going to teach you today, or at least get your mind thinking in a direction that's going to help you get better. And if you're too stupid to basically open your mind up to think this is a good idea, then there's a door or basically there's an open ear. And the reason why I say that way is your money depends on my money, right? You make money, I make money. If you're not making money, I'm not making money. If you're too arrogant not to make money, then you don't deserve to be here anyways. And I'm not wasting another lead on you. So the purpose is we got to make sure we're opening our ears and opening our minds up to make as much money as possible. That makes sense? And when you're talking about selling against something that we've never sold up against, which is doing nothing at all, right? How do we make that happen? So why is infiltration, air leaks, water leaks, whatever it might be, either way you want to call it, based on air leak is what I'm talking about here. When you walk up those windows and look like there's nothing wrong, what do I talk about? I walk up to a window, looks like there's nothing wrong, what do I talk about, right? And that's a big deal, because if you don't know what to talk about, and you don't know how to build your case around them doing nothing at all, then we're not going to be as successful as we need to be. Second is conduction and convection. I put them because they kind of work in the same thing, right? You know, hot subtract and cold, right? Hot subtract and cold, what are two of the best conductors known to man, right? So look at that aspect, I'm going to leave that for your groups. But again, conduction. How's a conduction affect? You look at basically this beautiful stucco house you see here. Where do you see all the red coming out? Right?
Z windows.
Z windows, right? So again, they lose a frightening effect. Sometimes up to 40% utilities costs are right out the window, right? Not talking about, you know, basically the thing that was shared, I think maybe by Ryan, I don't remember who shared it, but the FTG&E page, might have been Sean, I don't remember. But FTG&E, that 28% gas hike, you know, you're looking about that thing, right? If that's not risk enough to show them how their windows are costing them money, we need to figure out how to tell them and how to show them and share with them with everyday situations on how their windows are costing them money. So conduction, convection. That's group number 2. Group number 3, solar heat gain. Okay? That's the sun directly coming from the outside of the house is blasting to make you uncomfortable. So solar heat gain. Those 3 things. We're going to break up into 3 groups right now and spend about 15 or 20 minutes focused on these 3 topics. And then after we're done, then I'll share with you mine after you share with me yours. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. All right, break them up in groups.
Okay, so three groups. Let's see here. Hey, Ryan, I'm gonna have you come over to this group. Jeremy, I'm gonna have you come to this group. Let's see here, Mark. We're gonna have you come over to this group.
Sean. You're like that. What's wrong with
Dude,
oh, hamstring.
Listen, cramp.
Oh, yeah. That's it. That lactic acid built up. Throw the Orange County right now. There we go, throw the Orange County.
You put them on.
I'll show you an ad here. Yesterday at my house, Mother's Day, my mother-in-law is over there, a couple moms from the softball. Those are 2 different colors, aren't they?
Completely.
Yeah, just saying.
Yeah. Just show Ed that.
Yeah.
Actually, hold on. We're gonna go. We're gonna let the Orange County boys stay with you guys. Tape it to. How you doing, Scott?
Okay, so table 1, infiltration.
Where the hell have you been?
Table 2, conduction, convection. Table 3, solar heat.
Somebody nailed it when they were giving you this. Hey, there's part-time day.
Yes, PTD.
So parole went through?
Nice. Work a little bit, you know. But you get rusty. You know, been out 3 months now. Been at home a couple times. Forget it. And the confidence. Like I walk in a house room, and with this new system, I don't know about you guys, probably have to leave figured out.
I'm
struggling to leave.
I'm getting there. It's like, yeah, every day.
Yeah, there was way more user friendly.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that he was showing up on the screen with the contract where you put in deposit and stuff like that.
We're conduction, convection. Yes. Okay.
You guys have a customer that, say, a $10,000 deal, you take 1,000 down, and that 9,000 you expect that. You enter all that in the contracts part, right? So the only thing that I'm really using project design for is to just develop the basic deal and flip price.
Now I'm going back. Yeah. We gotta put it in the notes.
To build your project.
Yeah, that's right.
And to build it, and then that carries it over to the contract.
Looks like you're writing, Dave. It's pointing at you.
Heat and energy.
Is that pretty much it?
For what, sorry?
All right, if you want me to.
Conduction, convection.
Conduction and convection. Heat, energy, and transportation.
You've earned the right.
Isn't it the same as solar heating?
So what are we talking about?
This is through the walls.
There you go.
Convection. Every time I did, it was infiltration, conduction, and radiation. So I always did. So like, if your window is super hot, it's going to radiate the heat in.
They're expensive. By the way, these pads are the base table. Yeah, they're great pads. From up on a wall. So we're talking about what? Induction, convection?
Conduction, convection.
Yeah, so by writing it down. Conduction / convection.
Conduction's when it comes in, just heat, hot and cold coming through the window.
Conduction is the transfer of heat energy by direct contact. Convection is the movement of heat by actual motion of matter.
So
radiation is the transfer of heat with the help of electromagnetic waves.
So conduction.
Should I number these?
Conduction.
Talking about what we talk about with our.
What you talking about? So conduction specifically with aluminum frame windows. That aluminum is a conductor, so on hot days, the outside of the frame gets hot. The heat transfers to the inside to the point that they're hot to the touch.
The entire frame.
And they actually radiate heat. They're anti-efficient.
I just say you would never see them in the Midwest because they would frost over. You see why that would be an issue? Right. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. This conductor, so it will transfer.
I'm waiting on you, man. Word of live.
You don't want my word.
Yes.
I already got
But
that.
we cook with aluminum.
Yes.
What are we doing? Let's see. Table 2. Okay. Well then.
Conduction, how we use it during an inspection.
Let's okay, what do you guys want? You guys
So
want
far
some
we have aluminum
fun
that
aluminum
conducts.
facts? Fun facts? What?
Aluminium?
Aluminium, yeah, that's a good one. Let's
Talking about
see.
the
It's the fifth.
thievery of conduction slash
The fifth
convection.
most conductive element known to man, behind the precious metals, or gold, platinum, is a great stock to own. Silver. That's a fun one. People like that one. Let's see what else.
What's that?
Aluminum is?
Yep, they came into abundance in a Windows after World War II. They had a bunch of industry that had been centered around aluminum, creating World War II parts and things for the war. And they didn't know how to keep those people employed, so that's when aluminum windows became popular. Because they didn't have high energy bills at the time. They didn't really care about heat. And they could make them a lot quicker than they could custom.
And global warming didn't kick in yet.
That's right. There's a fun fact. None of that.
You know, that's
That was just for you guys.
None of that. Post World War II.
Let's see. Those are fun aluminum ones. But
I always say that the aluminum windows, pretty much every new construction home in San Diego from about the 1950s to 2000, aluminum frame windows because they're inexpensive.
California was actually also one of the last states to make aluminum windows fail code for new home construction.
Well, and around 2000, the state of California changed their energy efficiency requirements. And they got
No, I don't know about the whole state, but yeah, I guess you could say something.
Can you guys talk a little bit about, what Dustin's talking about? Because a lot of times when I go up to these aluminum like houses, I don't see cracks. I don't see a lot of dirt in the areas. I don't really
So
see.
did you say, did you just have your stucco redone? That's what I say. Did they say no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, ask them if they just had their stucco redone.
80% of the time, there's cracks, coming down the side.
And if there's not, they probably just had it painted, or filled and painted, or they just had their stucco redone. So ask. And if they say no, then you're like, wow, well, you did a really good job. Whoever did it last.
So, I mean,
Won't
as
make a
far as
mess.
conduction, I think that's, what else is involved in windows that are causing conduction issues?
You're trying to heat the inside, it's cold outside, and you got that.
That's convection.
Oh, okay, we're doing conduction, I see.
Yeah.
Conduction creates the moisture.
I'm so confused.
It could. I mean, because you can get the frames wet, if there's too much of a difference in temperature. But typically with that type of window, there's not that much of a difference in inside and out.
In the
because it's
summertime, if they have like
just
those dark aluminum windows, man, those seem hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
So, hey, let's open up these plantation shutters.
Oh, dude, nuclear war behind us.
Yeah.
So what are you guys looking for when you don't see anything on these? Like, let's just say for the sake of conversation, you go up to a house and you don't see cracks and they haven't just restuck with the thing. And you're looking at an aluminum window that operates really nicely and it looks pretty good.
Then you say
You talk about, again, the aluminum frame window is an anti-efficient window. Because on the hot days, when the aluminum gets hot on the outside, it transfers heat, it'll radiate heat into your home. You're actually heating the windows.
Why did you want to
heat up
replace
the
your
house. Not just the glass, but the actual frame itself.
Why do you want to replace
Does
your
that really
windows?
make that much difference? Because the aluminum frame is so small and portions of the glass, I mean, the glass is gonna heat up.
Dude, listen,
Did you have to sign off?
you're just earning credibility. So don't get too deep here, man. Like, just hit them with some stuff that they're gonna be like, all right, cool, this guy knows some stuff, and move on. If you don't focus too much on it, because they called you. They want windows. Like, chill the fuck out. They want windows.
I do, but I mean, that's just been.
Chill out. Just ask them.
I skip the inspection for the most part. I mean, I suck at inspection. I don't hardly do
Well,
anything.
that's where you should be focusing
That's
on
where
most.
you, if you want all the other things you say,
So I'm asking, I don't know, right?
if you want all the other things you say to matter, you can't just assume, you can't assume that you're going to be given the role of the expert without showing them that you deserve the role of the expert first. So nobody else goes outside, nobody else does the inspection stuff. So just even some light inspection stuff, without diving into it, that's going to be great.
Did you take everybody out to a window?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. I mean,
Would
so,
you try to?
it depends. I like to ask them. Like, a lot of times we're not the first people they've talked to, so I like to feel out what they are. I tell them, look, you've gone through several of these. The last thing I want to do is waste your time. I want to make sure that my time with you isn't based on hearing the same thing you've already heard a bunch of times. So, have you heard this, boom, boom. Sometimes they'll say some terminology, but you got it. You know they know certain things. I'm like, awesome. Okay, so then I know with that person, yeah, I'm going to take them outside. Nobody else did, for sure, right? And that's one thing that does usually hold pretty true. It's like, you know, when you have to, you should do that. Does it work?
Yeah, I usually will, like when I start the inspection, I'll try to get them to come along with me. But definitely at the beginning, particularly if there's issues with water infiltration. And then outside, sometimes they'll come with initially, but if there's a problem or I recognize something, then I'll be like,
Go get them.
go get them and bring them out. Because I mean, they may not, I mean, if you're measuring 20 windows, you know, they may not want to just like be hanging out with you. They may only bring up, you know, something to fucking talk about. Like, oh, do you want to make any changes on that? Do you like the way it opens? Do you want to open this side or that side? Just so it seems like their participation is beneficial. You know, give them a reason to be there.
Feel them out, dude. Like, some people, you can tell right away, they're like excited almost for you to walk around their house. They're like into it. Some people aren't. Some people are kind of nervous about it. You can pick it up pretty quickly. Those are the people I'm like, you know, we could do 90% of this on the fly if we all just walked outside and walked around the house outside. And then all of a sudden people walk outside. They're super comfortable. So you're not going in and out of their rooms and down their hallways or like whatever the hell's going on. But like, if you feel that and you feel like there's a weird tension and the people are kind of talking about stuff, kind of nervous, then that's when I'll be like, definitely. Let's go measure these things from the outside. It's like, yeah, blinds and plantation shutters everywhere. I'd rather not get into messing with those if I don't have to. We only want to mess with stuff like that as minimally as possible throughout the job process. So, I'm going to chill. So, like, that's a good way too. But anyways,
That's conduction. Any other things on conduction?
I mean, like, what? I don't. So we just like writing down quick. So obviously, any way we can slow down conduction,
Or just like how
It's
are you
positive,
explaining it? and making
How are you
it-
explaining it? Okay,
Or
okay.
making
I
it
think
seem
what he
like
was
it's
saying.
a priority.
What we're talking about with our customers.
Okay, all right. Conduction. So yeah, I like to say that. I mean, we try to use materials in ways that allow for obviously as little conduction as possible. We can put foam in between the frames and it's pretty. Or with our wood windows.
We try or we do.
Whatever you want. Don't quote me on any of this stuff. Yeah, because even the aluminum windows they have that thermal break. And
We use materials to what? To eliminate or
Minimize.
to reduce?
Minimize. Minimize conduction while not maximizing price. What do you guys think?
Everybody's looking for the best
You
window.
feel
with the
like
best
putting a
price,
ribbon
right?
around this thing and doing some fun 15 to 20 minutes of shit paperwork? What if it was like just like paying for groceries? It was just like, We're out of here. Dave, you writing this down?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm writing it down.
I know. I was joking. Well, okay, conduction. Let's see. Conduction? There's.
I didn't want to forget your agenda idea. That's actually a really good idea.
Agenda idea. What's in there?
It's the whole thing that the way that you tee up the inspection at the very beginning. It's like I don't waste your guys' time for it. As soon as before you toss out 2 or 3 factors, getting the trust and credibility before you walk, before you start the inspection.
Of course. Yeah, man. I'm not here to waste their time. They're not here to waste mine, and I appreciate that.
Do you get them to the worst window first, or you just go out to how you're gonna measure it?
No, man.
You don't know which one's worse.
I don't care.
You just go to one you're gonna
Unless
measure.
they're
I
pointing it
ask
out.
people, I go, I like to start from the front door and go counterclockwise. You kind of look like a clockwise person. And you're like, let's go clockwise. Oh, okay, good. And you go clockwise. Or something. I mean, just whatever. Don't write these down. Because they change every time. I mean, it's not like an actual thing. You don't just say stuff.
When you don't have a conviction, anything.
Just say stuff, man. Just be conversational. Just do it. Just go do it.
Yeah, I mean, that part's really easy for me. The hard
So I guess
It's the lead program.
I don't see any. I don't see things in
Make sure you save your customer every no, otherwise you never know what can happen.
How does track it to cold?
Have you had your iPad break? Have you had your iPad lose connection to your phone yet, and then lost the whole thing before?
Yeah, I get chopped out of leap.
Like say on like the 41st window, where all of a sudden you go back and there's
I'll be like, you need to log in now. I'm like, 15 windows in. I'm like, son,
Creating.
oh yeah, right. Sorry. Hot is attracted to cold. Oh yeah.
Just creating a thermal barrier so that
Because then like, you
you don't get the
instead of,
heat coming in.
2,000.
It'd be cool if like every 10 minutes they repeated the assignment. What are we doing? Conduction.
This is called just creates a thermal barrier.
What? Coming to these is stupid. I shouldn't do.
No.
Coming to these is challenging.
We create.
But I do like it. I like hearing it. I want to turn it into Zoom.
Barrier to eliminate the flow.
However, we could do that without
transfer in our own.
No, this training is good. I mean, until I had done this like same thing with the media games. Gotta watch out. Like some of these thermal imagings they show you are from like crazy old images.
What happens to our 75% slide with the DOE? You guys still have that somewhere in these? The what? We used to have in the old presentation. That was a great slide. That's kind of that slide right there. 75% DOE says 75% of all energy goes out of windows. Windows and doors. Used to be in the old slides.
Who's in there? Who's watching? On I want to be on Zoom.
Anybody else? John, what do you got?
Absolutely.
it's all the same. I say it's superconductive, and you literally have like a hole in your wall right here. So if you add them all up, you got a whole big hole in your wall.
Looks like it's toast.
How long would that take you to fix? If it was just a big 40 brick hole in your wall. They're like,
But like,
not long. Like, that's what you have.
Okay, crackhead.
Sign here.
Yeah. Sign here.
They conduct aluminum windows are loud too. They conduct noise. These things are loud.
Well, yeah, they don't seal properly, they rattle.
Yeah, no, like they do. They like have that low. You can hear the metallic like sometimes. You really can.
It rattles the shit out of my apartment. Yeah. Like,
Get some weather stripping in there, man.
they more weather stripping.
What? I don't know. They're loud. Yeah, sure. So
It is a
that's what I would say. I'd be like,
conductive
if they
thing.
live next to a highway or something, man, you really like the metal. You can hear that metal.
Yes.
Did the frame?
100%.
I got flood for.
this after is my answer.
100%.
So when you go in the house and you don't see anything,
There's nothing. Dude, what do you mean? Like, then, what do you mean? I don't even know what that means. If you always, what do you mean? What do you mean? Then
what it means is it sounds like it means is that you're
I'm not really stressed out too much. I mean, they, bro, like yeah, but we didn't cold call them. We didn't cold call them, dude. Like, that you're out there for something. But I mean, like, who cares if you see something? Then do what you probably normally do, which is jack shit. Just go in there and start talking. Just like you said, right? You don't do an inspection usually, right? You just don't. You just don't. And go about your business. But if you do feel like doing it, good. And if you don't see anything, then be like, don't make something. Don't try it. Maybe they have like an aluminum pergola and be like, man, your windows are definitely old. They seem to be working, but you probably just didn't want some crazy people out here on top of your sweet metal pergola, did you? Like, yeah, boy, we were worried about the pergola. And be like, great, we do pergolas like these all the time. Don't worry about it. Okay, good. That makes us feel really good. Great. And then you sold the job, and you didn't even tell them about the windows. Then you're talking business. Like 10 minutes later, let's do this. They might be concerned about the pergolas, man. One way or another, it all comes down to pergolas. Oh, or just like, just bring it in your tiles. You know what I get a lot? People get nervous about all crap happening. I can tell you right now, nobody else should mention it. We're going to be sure to mention it. Because you're Spanish tiles. People hate that stuff. They watch the stack on the side of their house every time they have something done. The stack has small. Now they're going, boy, we're having our windows done. We have 20 windows. We got all these Spanish tiles everywhere. Steve's going to come in here and jack up all of our crap down. Is that something you're thinking about? And you're like, no. Like, are you thinking about it now? And they're like,
What about
great. Guess what?
condensation?
Thank God.
When you have somebody who like blacks.
And then he sold the job.
Yeah, with nothing to do with the windows of the inspection.
Yeah, but they're pumped on it, right?
But the outside is hot. And actually leads to condensation.
If you're just going in there and finding the water, you're just
water
looking
issues.
Yeah,
why they come
and
to
just
that.
like, I just don't like reading North County Code. So I just take it.
running air conditioning.
One month.
At high levels.
At least I'm not driving around only getting a point.
Same one because of the heat too.
Take the weird
But
condo
in that case,
situation
they would
there,
sweat on the
you
outside.
get it all right there.
Because it's, the
So,
condensation is
but
gonna be
Think
attracted.
about it.
It's
It's
just
very
like
moving.
temperature differences. Yeah.
Significant temperature.
Definitely probably got the putting on
Significant temperature conditions.
I'll try to put in
Condensation, just like my glass.
See you getting into the weeds.
Difference cans.
No, it's fun. I love each other.
Moisture
It's so
buildup.
fun. Like meeting people for the most part.
It is.
Temperature difference inside, outside.
And the difference in the people that we meet.
Oh, dude, everybody's life is so crazy, man. It's like wow, I get to like makes me feel like pretty sweet about just having things like pretty figured out. Like we're good. You go to people's houses like, geez, these people are crazy. Like I was in like crazy weird, like how you like just almost every town around here has like some just weird canyon area where the houses get like some builder did some custom stuff back there, some huge weird mansions or whatever. These people were like, their dogs, they had ripped up the flooring in this one room just to allow their small dogs to run in there and shit and piss on the foam pad. It was just in one room which had windows on both sides. Oh, somebody's in there right now? Never mind.
Why is this here next to us?
I don't know, but I just remember that.
Forest County.
Hey guys.
Gary, you see the picture of Zuckerberg at his desk, and he's got his camera and this like microphone taped over.
He's got what?
He has his camera and his microphone taped over on his personal like laptop at his office.
I have my camera taped over.
Yeah, yeah, it's smart. It's smart. Yeah, that definitely plays into this, Mark. If you're
What's
wondering.
that?
Talking about conduction.
Uh-huh.
If you're not careful, it leads to putting all your stuff on the internet. Zuckerberg.
All right, what about convection?
Convection.
Well, I mean,
Yes, convecting, you know,
if you're
where
talking
windows
about
work on.
the inefficiency of glass or the windows not sealing properly, you know, it's going to allow, I guess, the hotter to flow through infiltrate. But I mean, that's where
Convection occurs when air. Is that what you're saying, Hal? Is this what you're saying, Hal?
So what's the difference between conduction and convection?
Conduction is,
Is that a real question, or are we playing like fourth grade science?
yeah,
playing
so
fourth grade science
conduction
again.
is like when it actually happens to an element, like the aluminum. It's
Conduction involves a material. Convection involves
convection is the
air.
air flow. Right. Yeah.
So,
You
yeah.
have a
so
conductive
conduction would be
material and it
aluminum,
convects the heat out. Or
transfer of energy through a material, and then convection is just the air.
3 minutes.
Like a convection oven.
So conduction is what?
So conduction is just the
Conduction is
heat
like
laying on the window.
the actual material.
Convection is more the air.
Convection
Well,
is
convection
around
is the
it.
transfer of
It's the
energy
transfer of energy.
through a material.
Right, but I mean, if the heat's just laying there on the outside, on that window, the heat's gonna transfer through versus convection where you have
Okay.
heater on inside.
What I'll do is I'll
And then it
send,
changes,
That would be
circulates, heat rises. So how does convection, so the window's absorbing heat,
once I see you guys.
all that heat goes somewhere. So could that be impacting the second floor? Could that be a big part? So it's not upstairs, but all the heat.
Why doesn't it?
So it could be both. Could be conduction and convection.
Why don't we create a version
Conduct inside the house, you convect once
We
it's
can
inside.
send to people.
So a lot of times hungs are great, double hungs are great option because it allows that convection of air.
I
Hold that
just think
cool
it
air
allows
in,
people an
forcing the hot air out.
I just think it maybe improves the potential.
Either
They're
side.
basically dropping things out.
You have to get a double.
We don't
whether
monitor
reverse that or use both of them.
Anyway,
They just don't have to open the bottom.
like have a better thing we can send to them. The thing we're sending now, we can just have
Right.
Like the other
it doesn't, just sends them the discount. It just sends them this
It's not
thing,
a-
right?
it's not a security watch, but it's-
Yeah, but when we press, when we go through here and we send this, it should send it.
you can break it.
Just, could they permanently lock it?
Should be at least when we.
Like during installation? No latches, no locks, or anything.
It does do one of
Lock
those.
it, screw it up.
I think it actually figures out the one.
I really want to get the,
Demo no sale. It says demo no sale.
They could probably do a graphic.
And I'll pop in there, it'll give me that same
Just
little
like they do.
detail on it. He didn't demo anything on this.
oh, okay, that's what I was
And
wondering.
it'll come through here, it'll show me this, but it's, that's not
Why
a good
can't,
example.
I mean, why can't
I
this
haven't
come to us
seen
too?
how they do it yet.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Issue point, like here's one right here, right?
Dude, come on, that's gotta be sent to us. We should get that. Well, how can you send it?
I can figure out how they send it this back to specific.
Yeah, that would be part of
Just
your.
gonna put the email address.
Why don't you just figure this thing out like happened?
No, I'm just saying, I wanna
Right there,
know.
mister.
I'm gonna try to go in and even do it myself.
You're not gonna be able to. It's from the administrative side.
All right then.
So, inefficient windows.
Then that's completely.
Cause to be sucked in.
It's when you build the window, when you pick options and you do dual color, it's gonna already build
I do that first.
in that green bar, which is where all the options are.
While I'm in for like.
So on your project, when you're looking at a unit, there's gonna be a green bar on the right side, click on that, and it'll give you all the options. There might be some, but that's the only, that's all the options that increase the cost. Now, if you're adding specific colors, you'll do that in contract, but that doesn't affect, it's already been included.
The other two standard option colors didn't show up on mine.
That would be in your options. There's that would be in your options.
So even though it's a standard color or something.
What else we got?
My option.
Convection.
I think it's in options, and if it's not there, I think it's gonna be in options. That green bar.
It's not dual color.
No, not dual color,
The
but it's
more
still-
gas
it's just a price increase.
in between the
So
pane,
white is
the slower
and
the
then those
convection.
are options.
So even though it's a standard color, it costs around the
And then depending on the company, I'll say something like, it's like if when you get into an elevator and there's 6 fat people in there, or you get into the elevator and there's 6 skinny people in there. 6 skinny people can move all over the place and do what they want, right? But 6 fat people, they're pretty much gonna
So that's
stay
why I
where
didn't
they
see
are.
anywhere to add that in.
And people go, yeah, all right, yeah, exactly. I do that. I say that like probably, I don't know. I love saying that because it makes me laugh. But it's got to be the right company.
The more gas in the beginning, the pane's white.
Slower the convection. Also, the density of the gas matters. The argon is 38.4% denser than dry air. So, slower.
Conduction or convection?
Convection.
Let's,
Talking air.
Get up and go in groups.
We're talking air here.
So, group number 1, I think, is infiltration. So, table 1, and then you guys.
That's Mark Moore. He was already.
Mark 1. I don't want to hear Mark 1.
Take me to your Mark Moore.
You want to hear Mark less?
Mark less. I want to hear Mark less. So basically.
I think we should hire people not named Mark or Mike for a minute. That's what I think. We're on a hiring Mark and Mike freeze.
Ryan sounds just like my kids trying to get the freaking trash bag out.
Listen, dude, I've got the mentality of a 5-year-old.
We know.
I guess I'm it. Infiltration. So when you come up to an aluminum frame window, which most of the time that's what we'll be looking at, and there's not a whole lot wrong with it. You're always going to find the punched weep holes, or the big rectangle weep holes. That's a really good thing to dive into, explain. You see the light of day through there. What do you think's happening? Ryan's great line. What is it? To sell, you don't tell.
Oh, yeah, selling, or telling is not selling.
Telling is not selling. So, well, the one that he just brought up at the table.
It's my book.
I didn't hear a footnote. Footnote Ryan, telling is not selling. Ask him how often they dust. Do you see that dust come in the next day after you just dusted yesterday? How often you see spiders, all the bodies of dead bugs by the windows, all those things that you can dig into, even if you're not seeing giant water spots or giant holes in the stucco that makes it very obvious that you can dive into, right? What else? Oh, you're also going to run into the mold, all the little mold spots on the aluminum frames. Dig into that pretty easily as well.
Hopefully you run into it.
Yeah.
What's that?
It only goes to houses with no windows.
They all have problems.
Specialist for that.
Yeah, I guess the biggest key, use the size of a brick, 1/16 of an inch around 3x5 windows, like having a hole in the side of your house the size of a brick. Use that a lot for air infiltration. Most of the time, we focused our conversation around the aluminum windows because obviously that's what we're getting most of when we get into infiltration issues. The weather stripping, oftentimes you'll be able to just rattle the aluminum window, and you can hear that rattle in there, how much air you think's getting around the window, not to mention the weep holes and everything else. That weather stripping was gone 15 years ago. Basically, it's the time to dig into all the things that are wrong with not only what's going on around it that they may not be able to see, or 99% of folks are not going to think about that. It's just making them aware of, the window looks fine, but these are all the deficiencies that are going to be solved with a modern window. These are all the things that we can talk about once we get into the romancing about, you know, that window's rattling, all that air's getting through, all that dusting that you're gonna have to do. Wouldn't you like us to solve that for you? I don't know. What,
I mean, you know, you walk into these situations and like, you know, people are standoffish and like, you know, I just want to get the windows changed. Anything wrong with them? No. So, you know, doing a good inspection, like if they're aluminum windows, you got a really high percentage of one of these things has mold on it. And you got a good jumping off point to do your starter package. Like, you know, Mr. Meager, this thing is toast. There's mold all over it. So we're going to do this one for sure. And then let's talk about the other, you know, so you can set it up like that. But the infiltration is a big thing. Just putting them in a slice of life. Like how did your house do last year during the wildfire season? Like, were you able to keep the smoke out and everything was hard to breathe in your house? Oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, yeah, these things leak like the Titanic, man. They've got a bunch of smoke in the house during fire season. Is it drafty in here? You know, just looking for the signs like something's getting through, whether it's termites, cobwebs, water, you know, check the baseboard below the window. You know, most of these people have done floors and they've opted for that cheap MDF baseboard that's made out of cardboard. You put a drop of water on it and it explodes, it blows up. So like that's easy to point out to people. And, you know, like Sean was saying, if you can see all this on the front or on the top, what do you think is going on in the dark, dank below the drywall? You know, if all this is on the surface, I bet it's totally clean underneath.
I'll also point out the weep holes where you can see through to the outside of the house. And a lot of times folks have never even looked at that and they'll look shocked that they can see outside of their house from their window. And when you bring that up, oftentimes you can just, you know, later in your presentation, when you're bringing the solution, you can explain how obviously modern windows with the reverse snorkel systems and all that fun stuff is going to fix those problems. And that's another reason you can emphasize the SD reflash is a much better solution than just gluing over your old weep holes, because those are put in there for a reason. When they put the aluminum frames in, they knew there were going to be condensation. They had to solve that problem somehow by having holes in the windows. You think it's a good idea to leave those holes in your house, even if you're going to glue something over. They can come to their own conclusion about why our installation process is going to be a better fit than any other installation process.
Also, too, in kind of the kill vinyl section about the frames working and the sashes working and the reveal not being there, it's not going to solve the infiltration problem if there's a big gap where the window's supposed to be closing. You know?
And there's actually an article that I pulled out over the weekend, looking at on Sunday, that talked about, right from the retrofit company, that said why retrofit versus new construction. And they even said in there, if your tracks aren't level, that just putting a new window in there will not correct the issue, which will create bigger leaks down the road than actually just replacing it and doing it right the first time. Because it's pretty much, they were even saying it's a temporary band-aid. I pulled that right off their website and pasted and clipped it, and it was, again, the Cheryl posted on the stream.
That's a good time to talk about when they have those weep holes, and if some company were in here to recommend a retrofit, they're going to have to leave the bottom open for those weep holes to continue working. And do you think that's a good idea if they know water's getting under your new window? Just things as simple as that to explain that those holes are still going to operate underneath whatever system is glued on top of.
Not to mention what can come out, what else can go back in.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, guys. All right. Conduction, table 2.
Go, Scott.
It's like taking the stage out of Prince leaves.
Are they not Jones? Okay.
Yeah. So conduction, convection, probably most talked about with the aluminum frame windows. The aluminum is a conductor of heat. Just why we cook with aluminum hot. So on hot days, the outside of the aluminum is going to get hot. It's going to actually transfer to the inside. They're going to radiate heat. So they're kind of anti-efficient. The materials we use minimize the conduction, particularly fiberglass. It's going to expand and contract the same as the glass does, so you're not going to get any warpage or issues with conduction on it. Hot is attracted to cold. Our windows create a thermal barrier with the argon gas in between there, so that you're not going to get that convection or the transfer of hot to cold air happening. Also, too, with the weep holes is another issue with convection. If you've got the cold coming in from the bottom or even the heat escaping, it can actually suck more heat in or out. Significant temperature differences inside and out can cause moisture buildup on the aluminum frames as well, just like your glass will sweat. So a lot of times, whether there's actually moisture coming in from rain or humidity, just if people got their air conditioning blasting on a hot day, just the difference in the temperature from the inside and outside can actually cause condensation on the inside, which will damage and visible damage on the windowsill, as well as invisible damage down below. What else we have here? Who said this is you? Noise? What's the noise?
You can't prove that.
What's that?
You can't prove it.
Aluminum does nothing to reduce noise. I guess conducting noise as opposed to conducting heat. Right? That's a little bit of a stretch on that one. Thanks, Jeremy.
That's not a stretch.
It's like a tuning fork. This is a good point too. The concentration of argon gas between the panes will help to slow the convection. So the difference between the vacuum pulse versus vacuum deposition. You know, if you've got 50%, 55% argon gas versus 100% cavity fill, this is going to help to slow the actual heat gain a little bit more. They start off more efficient, and the fact that they don't leak, they'll remain that way. I think that's it. I think that's all we have. Conduction, convection. Conduction is the transfer of heat through a material. Convection is the transfer of heat through the air. One of the things I say a lot with particularly the idea and the concept of a double hung window, having both sashes in the middle so that heat can escape through the top and cold can come in through the bottom. It actually does create a convection current to kind of push the air through more. Interesting little thing. Maybe.
Cool. Great.
Anything else?
Awesome. All right. Thank you. All right, Jim,
Who's talking? Come on.
Of course it's you.
Well, let's talk about the definition, shall we, ladies and gentlemen, of solar heat gain. Solar heat gain refers to the increase in thermal energy of space, objects, or structures as it absorbs the solar radiation. So in blonde, that means, Mike, in blonde, that means
your house is heating up when the sun's on it. The sun's beating on your house is heating up. That's a blonde definition, I would say.
yeah. So sometimes we can't even talk in terms of our customers that they don't understand, especially when we're possibly in areas where we have a language barrier. So keeping it simple, sealing it with a kiss. Examples are, Mike, this one's yours.
On an 85-degree day, the surface temperature can reach 160 degrees. So think about how hot your pool deck is. You're going to walk on it barefooted, how that's transferring into your house, that heat.
And the solution, Mark, is?
The solution to that would be with our window and the glass that we use, the actual glass package.
Yeah, thank you. And also, two conductors of heat are, why did you take out?
Because it was about solar heat gain. Solar heat gain has nothing to do with the aluminum. As I learned in Table 2's presentation, so we put in something we didn't need to, that's why I crossed it out.
Oh, thanks.
We crossing over to our conduction field?
Yeah, sorry.
Kind of stepped on ours
But
too.
it's
so-
okay if we blend tables. So a couple examples of conduction that you can use with your customer as regular examples that they can think of. One of them is the nacho cheese sauce. Like if you put it in a glass bowl and you put that in the microwave and you turn it on. So you turn it on and when you pull it out, all the outside's like really dark, but the inside isn't dippy, like it's cold. So that's a great example of that, as well as whose pan idea?
Have you used the nacho cheese clothes?
Huh?
I
have totally,
I'm intrigued here.
I totally used it. And people are like, I don't understand what you mean. And I'm like, okay, here's a good example. Especially when you're talking, when you're standing in the kitchen looking at the window, I'm like, have you ever heated up that nacho sauce? Anyway.
That's actually conduction.
Well, anyway, it worked. So, I don't care. And who had the stove,
But again, that has to do
Oh,
with
that's from
conduction.
table
We got
two.
off on a tangent.
Sorry, you could have totally used our help on the support on that one. Also, wait, who had this is you. Mike?
Oh, number 3. Our glass has blocks out 95% of the UV rays, which will save on them for their floor, their carpet, and their upholstery from fading, and obviously reduce the heat coming in quite dramatically.
And it also makes for an even room temperature. Many questions that you can ask include, go ahead, Lamar.
How often do you sit in front of these windows? How do you use this room? Are these blinds closed? Because you can't, that's not really the way to say it, but.
You sound
would,
close right now.
Pardon me?
It sounds like a cancer.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. Do you enjoy the view out this window? And they say yes, then why is it, why are the blinds closed? Some of us do. Talk about the SDG&E bills and heating and cooling costs. How old is your AC unit or your furnace? Would you like to extend its life? If they have a new one, would you like to extend the life of that one? How much did that cost you? Talk about the paying for the new one. How much longer would you like to extend the life of your AC heater? We talked about that. How often does your HVAC cycle on, kick on and off? I've counted 13 times in the last 2 hours. That kind of thing. Were you aware of that?
And also another example for if you're in a home with younger kids, like if you guys ever if they're like into sports or whatever, that AstroTurf, when you go, so whatever the temperature is outside, say it's 85 outside and you're just sitting there in the heat. When you're on that AstroTurf, when they get that DG underneath there and that AstroTurf, it's reaching in excess of 125 degrees. So these guys are falling and rolling, and that's another great example where you can use that to explain what the difference is from that heat. So just trying to use more common analogies versus something that people can't understand, especially when we're getting in homes where there's language issues, which I experienced for some reason a lot last week. So trying to kind of dumb it down and make it more kind of basic.
Now, something they wouldn't write down, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, especially if they have a new solar system on the roof. Point out that it's all glass. That is bringing heat into the house, brings heat in, which is transferred and made into electricity.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so purpose I wanted you guys to get together for is to make sure, get your brains going a little bit, right? Now this last section, I'm gonna roll through super quick, but a lot of on-base but off-base conversations. So here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna break it down in simplest terms, right? So first off, we look at air infiltration. You got to build a picture for the customer. Customer's not going to understand what you're thinking about unless you build a picture for them, right? Your job is as actors and actresses to make sure that you're putting them in a slice of life, right? I know Jeremy, the first time I rode with him, I bragged on how he put everybody in a slice of life. This part of it is doing the same thing. You have to ask them these questions, because if you don't build up to the why, they don't understand the how or why it's even important, right? Let me ask you guys, do you even know what infiltration is? No, we don't. Okay, so to see if it affects you in your house or not, you care if I ask you a couple questions. Great. What do you think an average mile an hour wind here in San Diego is? Most people are going to say about 10 to 15 miles an hour. Okay, great. So obviously in that covers dirt, debris, different things like that that could end up happening and carrying the air. If I wash my car today and I drive down the road basically for the next week and I come and park it in the driveway without washing again, what's covered all my car again? Dirt and dust. I got to let them know that dust and dirt, I give them an example that dirt and dust is carried in the air. If not, they don't believe me. They think it's bull crap, right? Well, it's coming from the inside. No, it's not. So then we got to get it, right? Next thing. Basically, it shows this around air leaking through it. So at what points in a window do air leak through the window, right? Leak through the sashes, around the main frame, where the connectors go. You guys talked about rattling a window a little bit, right? Did you realize aluminum windows, 90% of the time, have no weather stripping, right? They have no weather stripping. Therefore, you got two aluminum components sitting next to each other that are designed to rattle. That's why basically old storm windows in the day would rattle back there, so you'd actually hear them go, because the two connecting points go through, right? So without weather stripping, you're leaving lots of air gaps that come around. So showing them how their windows have no weather stripping. You have aluminum on aluminum contact, right? So what happens if basically I have these windows around the side jambs of the frames, next thing that happens is basically how does wind get in, right? It's carried through the air. So as I basically have that wind, it finds its path of least resistance. If I cut open a window and I look down the side of it, that basically wind does not like to travel through 90-degree temperatures. So if I take an average mile an hour wind of 10 to 15 miles an hour, and I got my thermostat set on 75, and it's sitting right smack dab in the middle of my house, right? Where does my temperature read? Does it read down here? Does it read up here? Read smack dab right here, right? So basically, let's say right now it's 55 degrees outside. It's a cold day in San Diego, right? 55 degrees outside, that cold air is coming in and penetrating around and through the window. When my thermostat reads that 55 degrees, what does it tell my heater to do? Turn on until it gets back to what?
75.
So again, if it does that, how many times do you hear your furnace go on and off, on and off? Do you hear that quite a bit? No. Well, since I've been here, John and Mary, obviously situational awareness happens, where the fact that we basically sometimes get put into scenarios where we don't even realize things are bad, right? Like I got a pair of shoes, I got a hole in the bottom of it. If I get used to wearing that and somebody didn't point them out again, I might just get used to living with it and then not even realize there's a big deal about that, right? What could happen with that hole in there if I didn't correct it, right? Same thing here. So John and Mary, do you think that's costing you money, or do you think that's do you think it's basically not costing money? Well, absolutely I do. Because every time that goes on and off, that's like taking a temperature. That's like taking basically your thermostat. Every time your heater or air conditioner works off of 220. If you go to your circuit box and open it up, 1 amp can basically give you about 10 to 15 switches inside your house, and you can have 10 or 15 items plugged into just 1 amp. So think about that. How much energy are you losing off of that one? If it takes 2 amps, which is the same thing it takes to run a heating and air conditioning unit, how much energy is that using every time it turns on and then shuts off again, right? Do you think that's costing you money? Absolutely it is. So next, do you ever walk up to your windows and find dust on your seal? That's a great indication when you find dust on your seal, there's an air leak, right? So again, if it's like 1 or 2 miles an hour and it's actually coming through my window, that's enough to carry dust and dirt on the seals. It doesn't mean you're a bad housekeeper. It just means basically something that you can't ever help is happening, right? We talked about the windows. Let's take a look at reason why. Let's open your window. See here, there's no weather stripping or anything keeping it through. See how dirty your tracks are? See the mold, see all the things that walk into here? In a minute, we're going to put a level on this to see how level it is, to see if you're even a candidate for a certain type of installation. But first, can you see, so far what I'm sharing with you, how infiltration is affecting your house? Yes, let me give you an example. They say a 16-inch gap around a normal 3 by 5 foot window is the equivalent of a 12 square inch hole leading directly outdoors, like a brick missing out of the house, John and Mary. If you had a brick this big missing out of the house, if you had a brick missing that big out of the house, basically how long would it take you to plug it up? Because if you could see right next door to your neighbor's house, looking through your own window, how long would it take you to plug that hole back? See what I'm saying? How long would it take you to plug the hole back? See, the picture's through 1,000 words, right? But again, if you're not talking about it, it's a big deal. If you're only talking about mold, you're only talking about destruction, destruction, dissatisfaction, that'll help. But I got to build a picture bigger, right? If energy efficiency is the big deal they called you out from, and I'm trying to build a case around energy efficient, why is air infiltration a big deal? When I fast forward and I show my window and I'm talking about weather stripping, I'm talking about the installation method, I'm talking about how tight the seals, less expansion and contraction, all those things that are important to correct that. And how many people, when's the last time you asked, or have you ever asked, do you understand how infiltration is affecting you in your house? Nobody does. But you guess what would happen if you did? You're getting them to take ownership of their problem. Okay? And ownership is 9/10 the law, right? They take ownership of that baby, they're owning it. See the lady looking through the window? If you could literally look through it, how long would it take you to get through it, right? So again, next is conduction. If you don't understand this one, this is major. If you're going into aluminum, okay, forgive me for saying it. Let me just do one of these things. So you cannot get mad at me right now. Let me repeat this. You cannot get mad at me right now. But if you walk into an aluminum window, you say there's nothing wrong with that, you're an idiot. You're a moron. You don't deserve any money when you walk into that house. You're an idiot. It means you don't know what you don't know. That's the definition of an idiot, right? So if I've got two of the best conductors known to man, say glass and aluminum, right? Aluminum's a great conductor. Glass is a great conductor, right? Just like the cheese dip thing that was talked about a minute ago. If I put cheese dip in a microwave inside the bowl and I basically want to get that microwave inside my glass bowl, that glass bowl, once I take that baby out, if I put that in for 2 minutes, or even ramen noodles in there for 2 minutes, right? I go grab that ramen noodle out there with my cheese dip for 2 minutes. I try to grab a hold of the bowl, it's too hot to touch. But yet, if I put my finger in the middle of the liquid or in the middle of the cheese dip, it's still cold, right? If I basically take the cheese dip out after having it in there 2 to 3 minutes and I set it out, it's piping hot, literally you see steam flying off it, right? And I basically take my cheese dip, stick it in the middle of it, and it's still ice cold, but yet it's burning around the edges. What causes that to happen? Not because of radiation, it's because the heat is conducted to the basically glass bowl, and that's what's causing it to burn around the edges, not to the liquid. Not attracted to the liquid, it's attracted to basically the glass bowl that's sitting around there, which is why it burns around the edges, right? So glass is a great conductor. Gentlemen, when you think about glass in a house, glass is a fantastic conductor. So again, if I'm trying to keep the inside of my house warm, you ever walked up to your windows and saw that on the inside of your windows and the outside of your windows in the morning? First thing in the morning or late at evening? That's condensation, right? Let me ask you, number one, this is one of the biggest destruction of aluminum windows, what you're looking at. Sometimes not to the window itself, it's all the things that surround it, like your jambs, basically your interior seals, all those things that work into there. Basically, that stuff never stays in one place. You ever walk outside early in the morning and see aluminum fence? What's it covered in what's it covered in early in the morning? Dew or condensation, right? Does that stay in one spot or does it eventually fall? Eventually falls. So again, if that aluminum is falling and it gets stuck down on basically that interior, whatever organic material sits inside of it, eventually like a wet rag, right? If I got a wet rag and I set it down on top of basically something that's not protected like a sheet, then what's going to happen to that sheet? And if there's sheets that go, if there basically is another sheet below it, what's going to happen to that sheet? And if there's a mattress below that, what's going to happen? Eventually, it could stain the mattress, right? It could mess the mattress up because that water is going to flow down. Our friends at OS Corning only tell you it takes 3% moisture out of insulation collapse by a third, right? Just think about how expensive that would be if it got down inside of there, right? Not to mention, hot's attracted to cold. You know, basically, when you take a cup of coffee, you see that coffee rolling early in the morning, right? You get that nice steam, right? Hot's attracted to cold. If I take my body and I walk outside, and let's say I go in the Midwest, and let's say it's 30 degrees outside, and I walk outside, and I have my coat on and my hat, when I open my mouth, what leaves my mouth? Heat, right? It's heat. Heat leaving your body, right? Because that heat is attracted to cold. It's like when it comes out of your head when you got to put a hat on there. Eventually, hypothermia happens. Because again, just like our body, our house, if it's warm inside and cold outside, that heat is going to be attracted to those two conductors. Similar like the aluminum, similar to the glass, right? Like the aluminum fence or the glass. That hot is going to be attracted to that conductor. So therefore, when I'm trying to pay all that money, 75 degrees inside my house, and I'm trying to keep that heat from going towards my window, what's stopping it? If that glass itself is 30 degrees, well, let's say it's 30, let's say 55 degrees out here, 75 in here, if basically that glass is 60 degrees, where's that heat going to want to be attracted towards? So therefore, is there any way I can ever go back to my thermostat and turn it down or up enough to heat or cool the outdoors? Is there any time that'll ever happen? So I can net what you're telling me, if I hear you correctly, I think I am. If I turn that all the way down or all the way up, there's never enough heat or cold I'm going to be able to do to fight off the outdoors. Okay? So think about that. If I'm trying to keep, if I have room to, or if I have basically certain rooms in the house where I can't keep the temperature comfortable, right? And I'm noticing this type of stuff all over, just like my glass iced tea when I take it outside. I notice that stuff all over the windows. What's it a good indication? That moisture is knowing that hot is meeting cold, right? So again, when all that heat's trying to trap out or travel out of my window, or travel through my window from the inside out, do you understand how conduction is affecting your house? So again, all that heat you're doing in here, picture right now is our coffee. You've got your glass ice water outside. When all that heat is being attracted to that cold glass ice water, there's nothing we're going to do to fight that right now, is it? So again, do you understand how conduction affects your house? I haven't solved shit. I haven't solved shit. We're not going to frickin' solve anything. The inspection is not about solving anything. Do you hear me? Crystal frickin' clear, do you hear me? You do not solve shit in the inspection. That's not what you do. That's how you go broke. You do not give a Band-Aid. Understood? You'll go fucking broke giving a Band-Aid. Solar heat gain, aka UV rays, right? This is that heat coming from the outdoors of the house. This is the heat coming from the outdoors. And when I'm standing in front of the window and all that nasty heat is barreling in. All that nasty heat is barreling in. And it is, you're trying like hell to keep it comfortable. So you buy blinds, you buy solar shades, you try to stay away from the room, makes the rooms unlivable. Right? Tell me a time where you got put inside a room where you couldn't do it. Do you call it a fan room where you got to lay in your underwear on the fan? Whatever it is. Make sure you understand how bad it is. Put your ass in a slice of life. If you don't have them back in a slice of life, understanding why they feel that way and how they feel like you're a damn counselor, you're not doing everything you can do to be successful. These basic principles I'm sharing with you, how much freaking money I've made because of these things? A ton. A ton. I was 22 making 150 grand a year using these things. 22 years old, making 150 grand a year by talking about infiltration, conduction, convection. If you're in 2019 and you're not making that much money, open your freaking ears. So look at it. Solar heat gain. Also, not only causing those rooms to be uncomfortable. So John, maybe you told me there's certain rooms in the house you can't keep comfortable no matter what. Is it coming through conduction? Is it coming through convection? Is it coming from infiltration? What is it coming from? Do they understand how that's affecting in the freaking house? You got to get good at this. It's not about just how much better my window is than somebody else's window. That doesn't sell windows. That sells prices. That's why you're the Mercedes. That's why you're the Cadillac. That's why you're on the B-back bus. Get all over it. Because again, the fading of floors, right? That's what the UVAs do. Right? We knock out 96% UV rays. What does that mean? Why is that important to me? What industry jargon, right? We're trying to prevent your floor. You know how much it costs to get a floor like that done? What are we selling against? I just got new floors. Whoa, that's exactly why you need to do new windows. You know what the average cost is to sand down and refinish a floor right through there? Probably more between $3 to $5 grand a room. By the time they sand that baby down, they seal it, they wax it, they do everything else. The average time you got to come back with this is every 2 years. Do you really want to be spending $3 to $5 grand every 2 years just to wax and seal your floor? And how many times in a lifetime can that happen? Right? Isn't that a maintenance cost you can put back into your utility savings? John and Mary, if you're paying $500 a month now, 28% now is going to be $618. Do you think you're helping, your windows are helping your cause or hurting it? Can you see how you're already paying for your windows? Not to mention, pay attention to the furniture, right? Before and after. Pay attention to the furniture. How much did that chair cost? What's going to happen to the other chairs if you start switching them out? Can you see how the UV rays are destroying your house? Can you see how they're destroying your house and costing you money and inconvenience and time? Right? See the passion? I get mad because it's blocking and tackling. Blocking and tackling. Infiltration, conduction, convection, solar heat gain. There's one vent in this entire room trying to fight off the hot and cold from coming in. One vent in this entire room trying to stop the hot and cold from coming in. How's it doing? Is it doing a great job? Is it doing a bad job? What's the problem? Does it make sense? Don't be like this dude, right? Sweating and dying. He's got his own little personal fan in the room trying to make it, I call it the fan room, because there's nothing you can do to make it comfortable inside of it. You got to put them in a slice of life they can understand. Pain is brought by words, right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Hell no. Words have meaning. Words create emotion. Words create pain. Drawing pictures, putting them in a slice of life, make them understand why their bills are $500, $600 a month. Make them understand why they're $200, $300 a month. Make them understand why they're $800, $1,200 a month. Got to get in it. And if you like what they talked about before, what are you doing to educate yourself? Would you go to a doctor that doesn't study? Would you go to a doctor that doesn't study? If you do, there's a good chance that he's going to give you wrong information, wrong medication, do stuff that used to work when there's a better solution now. Make sure you understand it. Talk about the correct installation. I pulled these up offline in 2 seconds, right? Retrofit installation leaking water. Another retrofit installation leaking water. Retrofit where they didn't flash it correctly and the water got back behind down the seals. Look at that stuff. It's all over the internet. All you got to do is type in Google the right things, and Dr. Google will prescribe you what you need to make somebody's life a living hell. Okay? Ending. Don't talk, just act. Don't say, just show. Don't promise, just prove. You think about today, right? That's why I had you guys go through this first, because I wanted you to clear your brain. Just like you, if you feel like you got something to say, you could see when other people were up here, then other people wanted to throw their stuff in there because they weren't listening until they got to say what they wanted to say, right? So it didn't clear your ears. Didn't clear the 6 inches between your ears. Till they get to say what they need to say, just like Ryan said a minute ago, right? Quoting Jeremy or quoting himself or quoting whoever he wrote in his book, right? So when you look at that thing, right? You said, what was that exact verbiage?
Telling is not selling.
Telling is not selling, right? But if you don't let them tell you everything, they're not listening. They're not listening. So again, when you're into that, after I start talking about my infiltration, conduction, convection, solar heat gain, installation superiority through there, I can't talk about that until they spill out. Fill up before we pour out. That's what that means. Fill up with their crap first. Let them get everything they feel like is wrong with it, and then pour out education, knowledge, skill, earn your credibility. Make sense? Helpful? I got your attention? That's what the goal was. All right. Who they think gonna be SoCal? Nobody. What? No. Who they think gonna be SoCal? Nobody. All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Dustin. It was awesome, as always. Thanks, Dustin. You got some great energy.